17 lectures of the Compassion series have now been given. In the 14th lecture, or around the time, a comparison and analysis of various Dharma practice methods was given. Explanation was also given as to how we should choose different practice methods to increase the success rate of our own Dharma practice. From that, some questions have been raised. The 15th lecture explored whether these different methods of practice should involve different sects. How should Dharma practitioners face and choose different denominations? Can these sects be merged into one? Will frequent reciting the Kshitigarbha Sutra link to hell? Can Buddhism be free from sectarianism? This leads to more questions. Lecture 16 identified other elements of the Dharma practice that would affect practice results. What is the correct procedure for Dharma practice? The eternal mystery derived from the achievement of the three kaya, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, when attaining Buddhahood was explained in that lecture, which leads to a number of questions to be answered in the 17th lecture today. The Kagyu school believes that a person's Dharma practice should be divided into 4 stages. The first stage is to observe the precepts carefully, and the second stage is no longer necessary to keep the precepts anymore. All behaviors of the body, speech and mind will naturally conform to all precepts. The third stage is crazy wisdom, that is, the practitioner will go mad. But if you take a closer look, there will be wisdom in it. That is why it is called crazy wisdom by others. The fourth stage is to cross this stage of crazy wisdom before one can attain Buddhahood. It is said that crazy wisdom is a stage before the ultimate enlightenment of esoteric Buddhism. Is this statement correct? Or is it wrong? There must be justifications for either right or wrong. So, what are the justifications? Before the session, if you wish to review the previous 16 lectures, you can visit the YouTube channel of the Dudjom Buddhist Association, International. The first lecture is the correct explanation of Bodhicitta of emptiness, the oral pith instructions of the Great Perfection, and the fallacies of the crazy wisdom. The second lecture teaches the visualization practice method of initiating the programming in entering into the Dharma realm to attain Buddhahood. The third lecture is on the teachings of the Key of Life and Death 1, the oral pith instructions to attain the Dharmakaya Buddha. The fourth lecture is on the second teachings of the Key of Life and Death 2, the oral pith instructions to attain the Sambhogakaya Buddha, and the detailed explanations on the visualization practice of the Heart Sutra. The fifth lecture is on the third teachings of the Key of Life and Death 3, the oral pith instructions to attain Nirmanakaya Buddha, and the comparison of the oral pith instructions on the visualization practices of the Great Perfection and the Heart Sutra. The sixth lecture compares the oral pith instructions for the daily visualization practices of the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, and the Great Perfection. The seventh lecture explains the oral pith instruction on the visualization practice of the Heart Sutra, the nature of the 5 aggregates as emptiness. The eighth lecture teaches the oral pith instructions on the visualization practice of the Great Perfection, in daily life emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. The ninth lecture explains how to use the visualization practice of emptiness to cultivate compassion to remove emotional pain. The 10th lecture differentiates the Dharma practices between abiding in notions and non-abiding in notions of the Diamond Sutra. The 11th lecture explains why a pure belief in the Diamond Sutra can generate countless virtuous merits. Another title is The Method of Accumulating Countless Virtuous Merits is in the Diamond Sutra. The 12th lecture is about the conditions and results required for the different Dharma practice methods. The 13th lecture describes the practice methods with high success rates to be reborn into the Buddha's pure lands. The 14th lecture teaches how to avoid being possessed during one's Dharma practice. The 15th lecture clarifies whether the regular recitations of the Kshitigarbha Sutra will link you up to the hell realm, and whether Buddhism can be free from sectarianism. The 16th lecture is about the mystery of the ages, on the attainment of Buddhahood through the accomplishments of the 3 kayas, namely, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. The 17th lecture, to be taught today, will explain why the bliss of bliss, luminosity, no thought, in the higher level Dharma practices, would lead to one's spiritual crisis. Let's review on the visualization practice methods of compassion and bodhicitta. If you do not have compassion, you will not be able to be reborn into the fields of the Buddhas, or the Buddha's pure lands. Compassion can be divided into mercy and pity for Dharma practice. Without bodhicitta, one cannot attain Buddhahood. Bodhicitta is a kind of awareness. Because it is elusive, it is divided into relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. The latter is the highest level of awareness, to teach you how to practice the holy Dharma. Regardless of which one you are practicing, either the relative bodhicitta or the highest level of awareness, you must take the Bodhisattva precepts. You can refer to the Essence of the Bodhisattva Precepts video lecture on the Dudjom Buddhist Association International's YouTube channel. If the content of your Dharma practice includes only the first 4 steps without the highest level of awareness, then your progress will be very slow. You will need at least 2 to 3 great Asamkhya Kalpa, which means countless and many billions of rebirths. Therefore, when we start our Dharma practice, we must include all the elements from steps 1 to 5. When explaining these practices, we mentioned that we need some skills and techniques. There are 6 stages in the whole life journey, and each of these 6 stages has its practice methods, as well as skills and techniques. If you know how to skillfully grasp hold of them, it will make your practice very fast and easy to succeed. We have already described the stage of the bardo of dying, that is, the 3 stages after one's death. You will find that out of the 6 stages of bardos, 3 of them appear after one's death. That is to say, the subject of death is extremely important in Buddhism. It will make a huge difference if you know how to grasp hold of it. You must remember to revisit the 1st to the 5th lectures of this Compassion series to be able to prescribe the correct medicines for the illness. Now we are talking about bardo of this life, which is the stage of our existence. How should we practice? We taught a visualization method in the 2nd lecture of the Compassion series, which can include all elements from step 1 to step 5, with 24 hours a day, to be divided up into 3 periods. The first period is when you either wake up, come out of, or enter into a meditational concentration. You need to know how to initiate the programming of entering into the Dharma realm. Otherwise, you will not be able to grasp hold of it. This has been taught in lectures 1 to 5. Since lecture 6, we have been explaining how to train our awareness in our daily life, and so we should know by now that the intrinsic nature is also called the Buddha nature, or Dharma nature, which is the perfect enlightenment, or bodhicitta. So, how to practice the holy Dharma in order that we can get out of samsara and to attain Buddhahood. To explain the first stage, one would need to make use of the Heart Sutra, while to explain the stage of daily life, one would need to make use of the Diamond Sutra. To cover and to grasp hold of all the 3 stages in one's Dharma practice, one must make use of the teachings of the Great Perfection in order to explain. We are now explaining the Diamond Sutra. Where did the Diamond Sutra come from? It was when an elder named Subhuti rose to ask the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni as to how to aspire to the Anuttara Sambodhi. That is, if we wish to restore our perfect enlightenment, the highest level of bodhicitta, a kind of awareness, or if we have vowed and hope to attain Buddhahood, what should we do in our visualization practice, and how to settle and rest our mind? How should my mind be abided by? How should my thoughts be subdued? How should we train our mind and where should it abide? Our minds also have a lot of distracting thoughts. How can we subdue them? In fact, this question asks, if I want to attain Buddhahood and I want to restore this kind of awareness, how can I train my mind in my daily life in order to succeed? In the first half of the sutra, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni stated 2 oral pith instructions. One is, should not abide anywhere, and the other is do not abide in notions. In fact, both are oral pith instructions to cultivate emptiness, which is neither existence nor voidness. These two oral pith instructions only explained the neither existence aspect of emptiness. As for the nor voidness aspect of emptiness, it was explained in the last part of the sutra, almost the end of the Diamond Sutra. I will explain this later. Where were we as of last time? Yes, we were here at this part of the Diamond Sutra. As long as we can arouse one thought of pure belief from the Diamond Sutra, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will then be connected with us, and will see our existence, and so we can generate immeasurable virtuous merits. But there is a condition. One thought means that one can no longer abide in the notion of a self, the notion of others, the notion of sentient beings, the notion of longevity, the notion of Dharma and the notion of non-Dharma. Please review the 11th and 12th lectures of the Compassion series for detailed explanations on all these aspects. But what does this sentence mean? This refers to the neither existence aspect of emptiness, the level that one must be able to achieve in order to obtain immeasurable virtuous merits in one thought. In other words, if you are not at the right level and cannot achieve the neither existence aspect of emptiness, you will not be able to develop the neither existence state of having one thought in order to obtain immeasurable virtuous merits. You must have to meet this very condition. Last time, I also mentioned an email that I had received, which I will continue to explain today. This email was received on the 25th of November 2018. The person had asked these questions in the email. He said that he was looking for information about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and saw Vajra Master Pema Ladran's YouTube channel, which he found to be beneficial. Thanks to the Master for propagating and teaching this important Buddhist holy Dharma, which once again has ignited my desire to get salvation in this life. After listening to several lectures, I have 2 questions to ask you and wonder if any Dharma brothers could help answer them. Or, perhaps, the compassionate Master could help to clear the confusion, please. The first question is concerned with the situation when Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, or Nirmanakaya Buddha is attained during the bardo. What I heard when learning Buddhism before is that once one has attained Buddhahood, one will fully possess all 3 kayas, namely, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, simultaneously. But when the Guru was explaining the bardo, she had described in what situations one can become a Dharmakaya Buddha, in what situations one can become a Sambhogakaya Buddha, and in what situations one can only become a Nirmanakaya Buddha. It seems that the 3 kayas can be separated and are of different types of Buddha. I wonder if I have understood it correctly. Is this view to be different from the general Buddhist perspective? These have been answered in the previous session, the 16th lecture, for you to revisit. The second question is that I saw a video about the fallacies of the crazy wisdom. So, I looked up on the internet and searched for details about Sogyal Rinpoche. It is, indeed, a great pity to know that such a big incident had occurred. At the same time, I saw XXXX Rinpoche, I hid his name, a very long article on this matter, which is different from Master Pema Ladran's views. He also provided me with the link for me to visit. I have also answered this question in the previous session. You can watch the video again. I will answer his third question in this lecture today. I've also heard the stories of Kagyu school's founding gurus. But it was mentioned that the situations of crazy wisdom are very special. I had a guru from the Kagyu school. He said a long time ago that there are 4 stages in a person's Dharma practice. I remember it something like this. First stage, one must carefully observe the precepts, and then at second stage one no longer needs to observe the precepts. All of the body, speech, and mind are naturally complied with the absolute truths, that is, they are naturally complied with the precepts. The next stage is crazy wisdom, and finally is in attaining Buddhahood. It's said that crazy wisdom is a stage before the ultimate realization of esoteric Buddhism. Of course, whether this crazy wisdom is something that ordinary people are qualified to do now, or whether it is suitable for doing it in public, is a big question mark. From here, it seems that things are not that simple. The fourth question is, I know an American disciple of XX Rinpoche. He has a clean and pure view of the master's behavior. He told me that XX Rinpoche really had skillful means. He was so selfless, to the point that he simply discarded his own reputation. He himself and some of the students have received great Dharma benefits. In other words, he questioned as to why did Master Pema Ladran criticize this master in Lecture 1. There should be no time to answer this question in this session. The fifth question is, as for the supernatural powers of the Lord Buddha, I used to be confused about this. Why is it said that the Lord Buddha had so many human traces, such as injuries, illnesses, etc., but at the same time, according to Mahayana Sutras, the Lord Buddha had great supernatural powers? In addition, the Tantra stated that the Lord Buddha had revealed the body of the wheel-turning sage king to teach his disciples, without any human limitations. Can you tell me whether the masters have any explanations for these, and where can one find them? Let me answer the third question now. The question is that there are 4 stages towards attaining Buddhahood. Must one have to go mad, as a kind of crazy wisdom, before one can attain Buddhahood? I can tell you that this kind of a view is, indeed, a very absurd statement. There has never been a Buddhist sutra that had described such a situation. Nor has there been any sastras stating such a phenomenon. It has never been said that one must be insane before attaining Buddhahood. The so-called wisdom that was contained in such kind of madness is given a name called crazy wisdom. It has never been told as such. He said, the next stage is crazy wisdom and finally attaining Buddhahood. Crazy wisdom is a stage that exists before the ultimate enlightenment of esoteric Buddhism. He said it must be true. This statement is indeed an insult to esoteric Buddhist practice. How does a crazy state appear? In fact, it is a sign of spiritual crisis. But how is this phenomenon of spiritual crisis being caused? And what are the reasons behind it? I will now explain what is meant by spiritual crisis. In fact, the reason for this kind of spiritual crisis situation is that the Dharma practitioner has reached a certain level, and at a certain degree during the processes of Dharma practice. However, one could not match and correspond to this level. So, what does it mean by not matching and corresponding to such a level? It means that the level of his understandings towards mind training, meditational power, and emptiness cannot match and correspond to the signs that had appeared from his Dharma practice all along. He just could not match and correspond to such kind of a level, and as such the phenomenon of spiritual crisis would occur. Why is it like this? Because when one is close to that stage of attaining Buddhahood, a phenomenon will appear. That is, all the information that have been contained in our 5 aggregates, that is, all the information of these 5 databases, will be released infinitely. It has been stated in the Heart Sutra, which describes the state of the Dharma realm, that one must have to achieve the state of the 5 aggregates as emptiness, in order that one can stay in that state and be able to stay in the Dharma realm. The state of the 5 aggregates as emptiness also explains one thing. That is, when all the databases in one's 5 aggregates are constantly released, but one could not integrate and dissolve them into emptiness, then one will be in trouble. Firstly, because one could not stay in the Dharma realm, and so one could not attain Buddhahood. Secondly, one could easily reach a spiritual crisis. Why? Because when one transits from either a dualistic or multiplistic state into the state of oneness, as we are all in the dualistic or multiplistic state, only the Dharma realm is the state of oneness. But when one enters the state of oneness, from either a dualistic or multiplistic state, no matter what methods one might use, whether one naturally enters into it at death, or through Dharma practice at high levels of standards. No matter what methods one might use, a phenomenon will occur when entering into the state of oneness, from either a dualistic or multiplistic state. This phenomenon is that those 5 aggregates, all those information in these 5 databases, will suddenly burst out and to be released infinitely. When this vast amount of information was suddenly released, will trigger a lot of greed, hatred, ignorance, and extreme emotional upheavals. If a Dharma practitioner's mind training is poor, which means that his nature of mind is not good, when he sees all these scenes, he will lose his concentration due to his poor meditational power. It could also be due to insufficient understanding of emptiness and not knowing how to deal with it. If one understands emptiness well and has practiced it before one's death, or prior to entering into such a state, one should not fail in this case. However, if one could not understand emptiness, it is hard to understand it if you have only read some sutras and sastras, without having someone who has realizations to explain them to you. In fact, you will never understand what it really means. If one does not understand and thus just practice it blindly, while you meditate, and suddenly got to that very state, you would become so stimulated and agitated by it that you would go insane due to the inadequacies of all these 3 things. In other words, it is caused by your insufficient understandings and inadequacies of mind training, meditational concentration, and emptiness. Let's take a look now. The person said that a master of the Kagyu school told him that one's Dharma practice can be divided into 4 stages. Are those 4 stages that he had said really correct? What stage does one really need to go through prior to one's attaining Buddhahood? I will now try to explain these stages. The Kagyu school's Mahamudra is a visualization practice that specifically describes how to practice emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. It teaches the same things as Nyingma school's Great Perfection, yet there are many disparities in terms of connotations and contents among them. So Mahamudra is not as perfect and complete as the Great Perfection. There are some deficiencies, but how does it practice? It needs to go through 4 stages of yoga, called the 4 yogas Tib. Naljashai, before one can attain Buddhahood. This is not the same as that described in the email of that person. The first one is called Yoga of One-Pointedness, the second one is called Yoga of Simplicity, the third one is called Yoga of One Taste, and the fourth one is called Yoga of Non-Meditation. Yoga means in communion with, which means that if one applies this type of Dharma practice program, one can name it as one of the 4 yogas only if one can be in communion with the corresponding yoga. Moreover, each yoga is divided into 3 levels, namely, upper, middle and lower level, which is a total of 12 levels. If one practices the 4 yogas of Mahamudra, or that channels, breaths and wisdom drops method, and when one reaches a certain level, one will experience different realizing and sensing. Of course, these realizing and sensing also have their own downside, or drawbacks. You must know how to deal with them, that is, how to deal with the emergence of this kind of phenomenon. If you do not know the way, you will be in great trouble. This kind of high-level realizing and sensing is called bliss, luminosity, no thought. Let me now explain what bliss is. When you have practiced the Dharma to a certain level, you will suddenly experience the joy in your whole body. You will feel that your mind seems to be free from all pain. There seems to be no signs of pain at all, and you will only feel happiness. Such level of happiness and phenomenon not only appear in your mind, but throughout your body. Secondly, there will be a phenomenon appearing in your body. That is, no matter whether you encounter cold or hot situation, for example, whether you are practicing the holy Dharma in a world of ice and snow, on a snowy mountain, in a fridge, in a stove, or at a very hot place, you will still feel very happy and joyous. These phenomena will appear in such a way. Thirdly, you do not feel the existence of your body and mind. You do not feel the existence of your body and mind. Your body and mind will not be affected by the external environment. The only thing that you will feel is happiness, and you will always laugh. Also, your mind is very enthusiastic, excited, and full of joy. This kind of joy will go to such an extent that it is present 24 hours a day, day and night, and this kind of happiness will make you no longer care whether it is night or morning. Your mind often feels very joyful, crystal clear and bright. Even things that you used to find difficult in the past have now become easy to understand, because of the crystal clear mind, and you feel very happy. When many Dharma practitioners reach this stage, they will feel that they have become a saint. When you feel that you are already very powerful and have reached this stage of I'm a saint, that is when you will get into trouble. Because you will lose balance in your Dharma practice, resulting in the following situations. 1. You will laugh and dance for no reason. Because you are so happy, you need to express such kind of happiness in the form of dancing, and sometimes you will even talk and sing to yourself. 2. You will often feel that all worldly businesses could be let go and there is nothing to be desired, yet sometimes you will suddenly think of doing some Buddhist things. 3. However, with regard to the visualization practice and Dharma events, even though one used to like them very much before, he no longer likes them now, and he will not even practice meditation nor entering into certain meditative state for Dharma practice. It is because he feels that he has already practiced to a very high level and has reached the standard. It is not necessary to do so many things anymore, and he will then begin to stop doing them. 4. He will often forget everything because he cultivates emptiness wrongly. If one misunderstands emptiness and thinks that neither existence means that there is nothing and he needs to forget everything, he will then fall into such kind of state and forget everything. As he cannot remember anything, so he has nothing to follow and nothing to cling on. What will happen then? His mind will often enter into the state of drowsiness and audatya. What is drowsiness? It is the state of being sluggish, unable to think of anything, being lethargic, and the whole person will sink. Audatya means overexcitement, thinking about everything, keep thinking along that line and cannot stop. This is called audatya. Yet one does not know that he is in such situation, and he still thinks he is very powerful. He also does not know that he has forgotten so many things, and he is even not aware that he has fallen into such a state of drowsiness and audatya. Also, he does not know that he has lost a lot of memories, and that he is completely unaware of them. This kind of phenomenon will appear when he has lost his awareness and misunderstood emptiness. In addition, although he feels the emptiness and nothingness, because he focuses on the neither existence aspect of emptiness, he feels that there is nothing. On the other hand, he feels annoyed, which seems to have increased, and sometimes he wants to cry for no reason. The new translation of the Essential Uncommon Teachings of Mahamudra, compiled by Guru Daba Middenmingda Ligon, refers to the realizing and sensing when one reaches a higher level Dharma practice, the phenomena of bliss, luminosity, no thought. It states that think of your Guru at all times. Merge into your body without abandoning. In fact, when one practices the esoteric Buddhism, regardless of which denomination, one is required to visualize his Guru 24 hours a day all the time and merge with him into one. It is the same practice if one practices the 4 yogas of Mahamudra, or methods of channels, breaths and wisdom drops. If abiding as such, if one follows these practice methods, one will give rise to bliss, luminosity, no thought, one would arouse some high-level realizing and sensing which are bliss, luminosity, no thought. If the bliss increases and becomes too strong, one will go crazy. It is very clear here. If one's realizing and sensing of bliss are too strong, one will go crazy, and that is madness. One will go insane. In fact, it has been clearly explained in the books compiled by these great Dharma practitioners why a practitioner can become crazy. Where is this book now stored? When the book was written during the Yuan dynasty, there was a national teacher named Drogon Chogyal Phagpa, who belonged to the Sakya school, and was a great Dharma practitioner in the 13th century. He included the new translation of the essential uncommon teachings of Mahamudra into the esoteric collection of Mahayana teachings, and that is where you can find these materials. It describes that when the bliss increases and becomes too strong, that is, if one's high-level realizing and sensing are too strong, one will go crazy. One will be mad. What is it actually like? How should you treat these symptoms if you are already experiencing them? In fact, you must be personally guided by your guru, who can then teach you the methods to deal with this phenomenon and fix the problem. You must find your own master to teach you. Why? Because you have visualized your guru abiding on the top of your head and even merged with him into one, so you are already connected with him. If your guru is not up to standard, you will be in serious trouble when you encounter problems. If the standards of the guru are adequate, he should be able to teach you. That is, only the guru of that person knows what practice methods he has taught him, because underpinned those teachings there should be careful and different detailed explanations. What perceptions have been instilled into his mind? Only his guru knows, and only his guru knows what Dharma practices he has taught him, only then he can prescribe the right medicine for the illness. Therefore, the guru cannot help if one is not his disciple. For instance, I am teaching and explaining it now and you think I understand it. However, you were taught by another guru who led you into trouble. Even if you come to me, I cannot teach you and solve the problem. Why? We cannot get involved in such kind of rescue, because the person who tied the bell is required to untie it. You must find the guru who taught you so that he can tell you exactly what practice methods he has taught you, what triggered the current phenomenon and how to fix it. It should be done in this way. If you ask another person who does not know exactly what you have learned before, and ask him why this phenomenon occurs, as it could be the result of a combination of many situations, and not just a particular one, it would be very difficult to identify the root cause of the problem. As you are not his disciple, there is a lack of mutual understanding and trust between you and him. If you are the guru, even if you explain it to him, he might be dubious. You cannot figure out what he has learned that caused the problem, and how you can teach him to fix the error. If you take over in this way, it will be more prone to troubles. Because the situation is not understood clearly, it will cause more confusion. You could help him based on the precepts, and out of your compassion. But whether you can help him is a kind of wisdom which we need to know and understand, and this is a key point. If you know that you are unable to help him but insist on doing it, you will make things more chaotic, which is not good. This is a lack of wisdom. So, we must abide by the precepts of being a guru. If you are not our disciple and you encounter a problem in Dharma practice, we must not interfere. You must find your own guru. If your master is really qualified, he has practiced the method and he knows why this situation happens, he will explain to you why there was such a phenomenon and know you can deal with it. This is of course the best situation. But if he lacks standards, you will be in big trouble. So here I will not teach you the methods of remediation, nor the ways to solve these problems. Today I will only explain the reasons why, when bliss increases and gets too strong, one will go insane. I am only explaining the reasons to let you know. In other words, you can think about what your master has taught you based on the reasons I have explained, and in what situation the problem occurs, you must ask him. I can only teach you the reasons that cause the problem. Let me explain the reasons now. The first reason is called abiding in notions, that is, the oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra we have taught for a long time. Do not abide in notions. You must know what it means by abiding in notions. It is attaching to some phenomenon, form or state. This is called abiding in notions. If you abide in the state of bliss, you will have deviations and attachments. You will lose balance and you will go crazy. Therefore, the oral pith instruction in the Diamond Sutra teaches you it is important to remember, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions in your Dharma practice. One should not abide in any state, form or phenomenon. You will be in trouble if you take a further look, or give an extra thought of it. So, by all means remember, do not abide in notions. What is the purpose of the oral pith instructions? In fact, they are to assist the Dharma practitioner not to lose balance when he enters a certain state, so that he will not fall into a dangerous or crazy state. So, the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra are to prevent the Dharma practitioner from losing control and fall into a state of madness or spiritual crisis when he gets better and better in his Dharma practice and reaches a certain state. Therefore, this oral pith instruction is extremely important for Dharma practitioners. Do not underestimate it. Some people read the Diamond Sutra at least once a day, but because the Diamond Sutra is very long, they fail to know that these 2 sentences are in fact the oral pith instructions. They only know neither existence means that there is nothing. So, they visualize nothingness in their meditation, and they abide in notions even more and become crazier. Therefore, the person who interprets the Diamond Sutra must be very qualified. If the Diamond Sutra is wrongly interpreted, because the first half, which is almost 3/4, of the Diamond Sutra describes only the neither existence aspect of emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. However, the nor voidness aspect is actually the key, but are described in the final part of the sutra. Maybe the reader dozes off while reading the final part, and he then misses the oral pith instruction of nor voidness, and he does not even understand the oral pith instruction of neither existence. He only knows that he finishes reading the Diamond Sutra, which describes that there should be nothing and no form at all, and this is the way towards successful Dharma practice. Moreover, one can succeed in his Dharma practice if there is no notions of others, notions of a self, and there should be nothing. So, you feel that this is the way towards success in your Dharma practice. After reading the Diamond Sutra, you only know that there is nothing. After reading the Heart Sutra, you also only know that there is nothing. But you do not know that, in fact, you need to retain the awareness. So, you lose your balance. You do not even know how to apply the oral pith instructions, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. As the Diamond Sutra is so long, which 2 sentences are the most essential oral pith instruction, you must fully integrate these 2 sentences of the oral pith instruction into your daily life in order to practice the holy Dharma. Because you do not know, that is, when all scenes appear, you will not know how to apply this oral pith instruction. Oral pith instructions should be the essence of the sutra, and you should be well reminded with only 2 sentences. If you need to recite the whole Diamond Sutra before you can think about how to deal with the phenomenon now appears, you will be very disorganized in this way, unable to concentrate, unable to focus, and essentially alert yourself when certain scenes appear. It is because something will go wrong when some scenes appear. When you still slowly recite the Diamond Sutra and further think about how to help yourself, you will have missed a lot of opportunities. So, when you read the Diamond Sutra, you must know what these 2 sentences of the oral pith instruction are. When you listen to someone explaining the Diamond Sutra, and if this person cannot paint the dragon and dot in the eyes, it means that he does not know the key points. He is unable to tell you what the oral pith instructions are, and hence he cannot tell you. What is the oral pith instruction of this paragraph in discussion? It is, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions. Also, he will not tell you in what state you need to apply these oral pith instructions. If he does not tell you, you will not know how to apply them, and then you will be in trouble. The second reason is that the mind training is poor. It means that your mind training or your nature of mind is not good. You feel that you are already a saint, then you will get into trouble. As long as you practice the holy Dharma to a certain level, you feel that you are very powerful and you are a saint, and that you have reached a certain level in your Dharma practice, with high-level signs appearing, you are actually abiding in notions of yourself being a saint. If you are showing that you are of a high-level standard, the situation of your abiding in notions will be even more serious. Therefore, I keep emphasizing this oral pith instruction of the Diamond Sutra. I have been explaining it using so many lectures from lecture 6 to lecture 17 for 11 lectures, and I am still explaining, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Why? Because this is so important to you, thus I have to explain it slowly. I do not want you to miss these 2 sentences of the oral pith instructions, and I also worry that you do not know how to apply them, so the explanation has to be slow. This is the reason why the oral pith instructions of the Diamond Sutra demand you should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. You might wish to ask whether it is only the Dharma practitioners who need to pay attention to these 2 oral pith instructions. If I am an ordinary person, I do not practice the holy Dharma, I believe in other religions, and I do not believe in Buddhism. If I do not believe in Buddhism, do I still need to know these 2 oral pith instructions? I can tell you now. When you die, there will be a phenomenon where the information from the 5 aggregates will be released infinitely. Every sentient being will have this phenomenon. It is not because you meditate in a deep mountain and practice the holy Dharma to a certain state that this phenomenon will appear. Everyone will have a chance to appear at least once, that is, when you die. Also, everything will be dissolved when you die, including your 5 databases, where the doors will be widely open and all the information will be released. Because when you die, especially when you have just died, you are in a kind of restoring state. Everything will be dissolved and then returned to the original state of oneness. It is called the restoration state. You can revisit the 3rd lecture of the Compassion series for explanation. It is a phenomenon which you will be restored from a dualistic or multiplistic state to the state of oneness. It will be the same state as attaining Buddhahood, enabling the information contained in the 5 aggregates to be released at once. The result is a situation where information is released infinitely. Dharma practitioners somehow may have read the Diamond Sutra and apply it, to some extent, to deal with the issue. But if you do not believe anything or believe in a different religion, you will still come across the release of information from the 5 databases infinitely. What would happen to you if you do not know how to deal with it? Let's take a look at what will happen now, and I will say it again. Do you know what the 5 aggregates are? I have already explained them before in the 7th lecture of the Compassion series. The 5 databases are the aggregate of form, or Rupa Skandha, the aggregate of sensations, or Vedana Skandha, the aggregate of perceptions, or Samjna Skandha, the aggregate of mental formation, or Samskara Skandha, and the aggregate of consciousness, the Vijnana Skandha. If the deceased has not trained his mind well, a certain scene will trigger some kind of emotional turmoil resulting in excessive amount of negative energy. What is the aggregate of form, or Rupa Skandha? The aggregate of form refers to any substance, any scene you see, or any kind of phenomenon projected by your mind. These are all aggregate of form. Your aggregate of form will trigger all the things you like, dislike, hate, or are attached to be brought out when you die. So, you will see so many pictures in front of you. You can see all of your own history in one go. Even the history of many lives in the past will also appear. There must be some scenes that will make you cry, make you very angry, hateful, greedy, or obsessed. All kind of scenes will definitely appear, and there must be some scenes that have made you very emotional in the past. There must be. You will find that you do not look at every scene, but are drawn especially and attracted mostly to those that make you emotionally agitated. Then you are connected in. You will watch intently and recall how it happened at that time. You will be linked in right away. What will happen when you are linked in? You will arouse a certain emotion of yours, that is, your past aggregate of sensations. Your database has collected those emotions that have been so agitated in the past plus the emotions that are now further triggered. The previous agitated emotions could also be aroused now and reacted the same, or even doubled. These will lead to a kind of vicious thought. You will think, that was how I got into this turbulent state at that time. I want to revenge. That was how this person killed me that day. For example, if you see these situations, you will think about how to retaliate, or become very angry and hate that person. You would like that person to suffer the same. This will trigger vicious thoughts. This information will appear in the aggregate of perceptions. This vicious thought will trigger an impulse, which you want to commit a vicious behavior. You are not just thinking about how to retaliate, but you really want to take revenge directly and turn that into actions. This vicious behavior will trigger what you did in the past and what you will do now. That is, the database of your behavior will also establish connections, but because these are scenes of the past and you are in the state of restoration, when you die, they all appear automatically. The pool that can stimulate your emotions the most will appear automatically and make you focus on it. Those were the scenes of the past, while the behavior you have triggered is now. You wish to revenge now, but those were the scenes from the past and you are in the state of disbandment. All your abilities are dispersing in the process of death. How can you take revenge at that moment? You only think about it, then you feel that you want to do it, and you think you are really doing it. This is a behavior out of your thought. You feel that you are doing it in conjunction with what you have done in the past. The result is that you will realize the aggregate of form are the scenes of the past. Your feelings of the past and the present are combined together, which is particularly huge, and therefore the negative energy generated is extremely large. Why is it so large? For example, you were irritated in the past, as your husband had an affair and had a row with you. He said that he wanted to have a concubine and be with her. He wanted you to pretend that you did not see it. You became very angry and emotional. Originally, you have already forgotten those words he said to you before, and how that irritated you and drove you mad. But they come back to you now as a video which can be replayed repeatedly. When you are dying, the ability of your mind is very powerful. You can keep revisiting the words he said many times, and keep replaying, "I have an affair." You can pretend that you don't see it. Then the three of us can live together in this way. You can replay the situations, words and that person's behavior that irritated you most. Subsequently, you will be irritated constantly by the information of the past, and become very agitated at this moment. You will be thinking how bad he was at that time, and you will even watch the images that follow. Because you disagreed to live with his mistress, he then asked for a divorce. During the divorce, he used treacherous means to deprive you of alimony. Later, because you had no money, you lived a miserable life and thereafter died of illness. You become even angrier. So, a series of images are added up and bring together all the events that occurred in the past, not only the moment of the emotional turbulence, when he said he would abandon you, but also the series of events that happened afterwards. You had no money, life was poor and miserable, you had to sleep on the street, or in a crowded cubicle. The series of all these events and emotions add up together. It turns out that it is not only one single scene, but all those scenes that chained up and connected together. Now you can also see them living together happily. He and his concubine are living in good fortune, wealthy and very happy. They also made sarcastic remarks when you died. She deserves it for not living with us. She really deserves it. Ghosts have ghost supernatural powers. At that moment, your mind is very powerful. You can see those scenes of their happy life, which you could not see before, and hear their sarcastic words, which you could not hear in the past. Not only can you see now but hear it. This is very bad indeed. In fact, not only one can see one's own aggregative form, but any other aggregative form which are connected to oneself. One can see as long as one's mind is connected with them. Although it happened in the past, now I know that when I died, he made so many sarcastic remarks and is still cursing me. What will you do then? Your emotions will become more intense, and the negative energy of your emotions will be very huge. Adding up the present and the past, plus those things which you did not know before and you know everything now, as a result your negative energy will become extremely huge. But unfortunately, you are thinking about revenge in the process of dissolution, a state of restoration. In the state of restoration, you are incapable of taking revenge. So, you actually have not taken any revenge. But you are watching the screen and feel that you are taking revenge. What will happen to this behavior? You will be in big trouble. You cannot influence what had happened in the past, but you can influence the present. The current behavior has a kind of traction force, which will immediately trigger the evil karma from your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio of your mind now. It will be brought out. You are in the process of dissolution and can reincarnate any time. As you are in the process of dissolution, only your mental consciousness remains. Whether your mental consciousness leans towards virtuous or evil, it will determine the place where you will take rebirth. If your emotions are not so agitated, you should be able to experience the state of restoration and the bardo of Dharmata next. You can revisit the 4th lecture of the Compassion series. The next stage is the bardo of becoming. You can revisit the 5th lecture of the Compassion series for explanation. But if your emotions are too intense, you will skip all these states and reincarnate immediately, which will cause major problem. Immediate reincarnation will definitely get connected to those vicious magnetic fields. Why? Because what trigger you now are some vicious thoughts, and of course you will be connected to those vicious magnetic fields. Where will you be reborn? Of course, you will reincarnate to a very bad place. This kind of mental consciousness is our aggregate of consciousness, which will produce phenomena immediately, and you will then fall into the 3 lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts, and animals immediately. It depends on how vicious of your behavior and your intention to retaliate at that time, how thick your evil karma in your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, and how much you have connected. If 2/3 of your karma is evil karma and 1/3 is virtuous karma, it depends on whether you have aroused 100% of the 2/3 of evil karma. If it is 100%, you will definitely fall into the hell realm, and it is the 18th level. You will be suffering there and unable to escape. If the evil karma you have triggered is only half or 50% of that of the virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, you may fall into the 3rd or the 4th level of the hell realm. Where you will be reborn depends on what percentage of the evil karma you have triggered from the virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. Let's take a closer look. It turns out that all these scenes come from our aggregate of form, or the database of forms, substances. Our emotions come from the aggregate of sensations, the database of feelings. Our aggregate of perceptions comes from the database of thoughts. Our behavior comes from what we have done before and the behavior we think we are doing now. It is us who feel we are doing now. The fact is that you cannot influence others. You want to kill him, but he will not die. Yet you have committed the act of wanting to kill. This is what it comes from the database of behavior, the aggregate of mental formation. Within your mental consciousness, the state of your evil karma triggered from your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio belongs to the database of consciousness, or the aggregate of consciousness. You have to remember that it is extremely large as what I explained earlier. Not only is the aggregate of sensations huge, but your thoughts, which are affected by both the past and the present together, are also huge. Your present revenge behavior is as huge as the past and the present added together. In other words, you had the experience of revenge in the past knowing that this would not succeed. You need to become even more fierce in taking revenge. It turns out that when you took revenge like that before, he had not gone bankrupt, and he remains very happy. Therefore you need to take revenge again, and you will be even more fierce. You will combine the past and the present, and so the behavior of evil karma will be bigger, the negative energy will also be bigger, and therefore your evil karma will be bigger. Originally 2/3 of your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio are evil karma, and almost 90% of them are triggered by you. So it is very difficult for you not to fall into the 18th level of the hell realm. That is to say, the 5 aggregates are so terrifying. Of course, you think you only see your own 5 aggregates, yet because of your connections to other people's 5 aggregates information, you can also see theirs as well. That will cause a big problem. This will constitute your immediate reincarnation and form your future 5 aggregates. Therefore, you have connected the present, the past and the future all in one go. Because of this, you will form the future 5 aggregates and reincarnate. The Samyukta Agama Sutra, Volume 2 states that all forms, all aggregate of form, if the past, if the future, if the present, if in, if out, if thick, if fine, if pleasant, if ugly, if far, if near, everything is not me, not different from me, no form exists. It means that all databases of the aggregate of form involve the past, present and future, as well as far, near, coarse or fine, all will be involved. To observe along these lines, if you take a closer look carefully, the database of feelings, the database of thoughts, the database of behavior, and the database of consciousness will all be involved in all these situations. The past, present, and future will all be involved. Everything is involved. A disciple once wrote an email to me saying, "Master, can you explain the 5 aggregates in greater detail?" I do not plan to provide a detailed explanation now. I will do it when it comes to a related topic, such as how you reincarnate, as I am explaining now, why you become emotional, and why you go crazy. Going mad is not only when you sit in a deep mountain and practice the holy Dharma to that level which makes you go mad. In fact, you can also go mad when you die, rush into the hell realm like mad. I will explain it in detail when relevant topics arise. As I need to explain what past, present, and future are, I need to quote the contents of this sutra to explain. If you just read this sutra, it only says that much. You will not understand what now, future, and past is. You will not understand it. I have to get there before I can explain to you this is where they are linked together, which will then cause a major issue, and one will go mad. And while I am explaining go mad, I can then further explain it in detail. If I have not taught it, I will not quote this sutra and explain it to you in detail. I will only explain it when I teach it in the future. Let me give you an example, a real case that occurred in Hong Kong last week. It is a very good example to demonstrate how terrible the lethality of emotional agitation is. On the 3rd of March 2019, a couple was having a row in a car. The husband was driving in the front seat, while the wife and the son were sitting in the back seat together. The husband and wife were arguing while the vehicle was driving on the motorway of the Island Eastern Corridor, towards the direction of Chai Wang. The car was approaching Taikoo Shing, and you can also see this news on the internet. The wife is 56 years old, the husband is 53 years old, and the son is 26 years old. All are adults and should have a certain degree of rationality to control their own behavior. It is a pity that they did not. Instead, the wife was unbearably stimulated in the quarrel, so angry that she opened the door and jumped off the car while the car was moving. She then hit the fence wall, and of course she was injured. This behavior has a great chance that she might be hit and killed by the vehicle that failed to brake behind. When the husband stopped the car and got out of it with his son to see her, there was also a great chance that they could be hit and killed by a car behind, killing both. Had the wife thought clearly that this behavior was not only hurting herself, but the driver of the vehicle behind that hit the car might also die, and the passengers sitting in the car behind them might die as well. In other words, she could kill other people. Does she believe this kind of behavior is extremely dangerous and will harm herself and others, and even her loved ones? But would she think so clearly at that moment when she was emotional? Of course not. She will jump off the car immediately if she wants to jump, and she will do anything when she is emotional. When she dies and when the information of the databases of 5 aggregates is released infinitely, she will be the same. Don't think that I am very shrewd now, and I will be careful after listening to your teachings. When that time comes, I will definitely do not abide in notions, should not abide anywhere, and can overcome these scenes. Let me tell you, if you have not undergone practical training in daily life, and do not follow your guru, who strictly requires you to observe the precepts. If you follow the precepts, you will not jump off the car. You will only remember that the guru demands you to observe the precepts, and not how agitated you are now, and you will not jump off the car. You will not do whatever you think of, such as jumping off the car when you think you want to do it. You will not behave like this. So, it depends on whether you have practiced the holy Dharma, whether you trust your guru, and whether the guru puts efforts into monitoring you and demands you to observe the precepts. Will he punish you when you fail to observe the precepts? Has he fulfilled the responsibility of a guru? These are also very important. If you fail to follow, even if you have heard the Diamond Sutra and know the oral pith instructions, you may not be able to apply it, because something could happen in less than a second at that time. Something could have been done in less than a second, and you could have taken rebirths into the 18th level of the hell realm in less than a second. Similar to that person who took less than a second to jump off the car, the situation would be exactly the same. So, remember that you must undertake practical training in daily life, coupled with the supervision from your guru. If you do not understand anything, ask him immediately and untie all your knots. Otherwise, you will be troubled by these knots. If you do not understand it when you die, you will die and continue to reincarnate. So, there must be a guru, and the guru must be strict. You have to observe the precepts, and you really need to practice the holy Dharma in order to get past it. It is the same situation as reincarnation to the hell realm, and I have already explained it. When you are in the state of restoration after death, you cannot retaliate, but what do you get in return from your emotional turmoil? Immediately, and within a second, you will fall and be reborn into the 3 lower realms, or the realms of hells, hungry ghosts and animals. Once you enter, it will be very difficult to escape and get out again. The reason for immediately is because you are in a state of restoration after death, and you are being drawn by the least substances. That is, you are not pulled by any substance. You are now drawn by a physical body. When you get emotional, you will at most experience chest pain, dizziness and nausea. This is because you still have a physical body pulling you. You will not reincarnate immediately. But when you are dead and in a state of restoration, there is no substance, or only the least substance is pulling you. That is, there is nothing pulling you, and without any protection. In other words, your mind will act immediately, because of the strong traction force of emotions, and so you will take rebirths. That is why the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said in the Samyuktagama Sutra, that most sentient beings will enter the hell realm after death. Many people once refuted what the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said, and disagreed with his saying that most people will go to the hell realm after death. They would feel disgusted and questioned, "Are you threatening me? I do not believe in Buddhism. If I do not follow your Dharma practice, you then threaten me that I will fall into the hell realm after death. I have not killed anyone or set fire. I have done a lot of good deeds during my lifetime, and you are saying that I will fall into the hell realm. Most people will fall into the hell realm after death. I will never believe you. You do not believe it, because you do not know how nature works after you die. You do not understand, but the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni did, and so he told you. He only told you what he has seen, truthfully and without deceiving you. He did not say it to coax you to believe in the Buddhist holy Dharma, nor to coax you to practice it. He said it based on the facts, which is the situation I have just explained. If someone teaches the Buddhist holy Dharma without mentioning what I just explained, for example, explaining how the 5 aggregates make you reincarnate, explaining in such a detailed way to make you understand and quoting examples, how can you understand what those sutras and sastras say? All of those sutras and sastras describe it in only 1 or 2 sentences, such as the paragraph that just described has only 2 or 3 lines. How can you understand after reading them? You cannot understand what they are talking about. You will only understand after I explain it. So, if your guru does not explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, but only gives you a ritual and asks you to practice it, this is called blind practice, because it needs to be explained and the key points need to be emphasized. What are the oral pith instructions? What do you need to pay attention to? How it fits into our daily life in Dharma practice. These all need to be explained. This will depend on the realizations and the level of the guru. If the level is low, the guru will not be able to describe it, because none of the sutras and sastras provide any detailed explanation. These are the reasons why the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni often teaches us to adjust our nature of mind. You can see my teachings in the Mind Training series. I often say that it is right if the nature of mind ascends, and it is wrong if the nature of mind declines. The nature of mind is constantly emphasized. If the nature of mind is not good, then one will be in trouble. You may think I am too nagging. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni also taught us like this. We must adjust our nature of mind. Why? Because the nature of mind is the most important. Regardless of whether you practice the holy Dharma or not, you will inevitably face the powerful lethality if the nature of mind is poor. It will make you fall into the boundless sea of suffering, perish forever, and there is no way to escape. So, you must cultivate your nature of mind. The only way to escape is to adjust your nature of mind. Even if you know some Dharma practice methods and have practiced them to a very high level, even close to the stage of attaining Buddhahood, if you do not cultivate your nature of mind well, you will inevitably face the powerful lethality of bad nature of mind. That is, you will go crazy. As I quoted from the great Dharma practitioner earlier, one will go mad. This was not said by that great Dharma practitioner, but from his collective works. These also explain why most esoteric Buddhist practitioners nowadays only pay attention to how superb the methods they practice are, resulting in their arrogant nature of mind. They think that they have already visualized themselves as deities, Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, so they have nothing to fear. They call it solidity of Buddha's arrogance. They have already abided in notions of the deity, the Yamantika deity, or a Vajra deity with 3 heads and 6 arms. They feel that they are full of themselves, and arrogantly claiming they are very powerful. They can visualize themselves with many heads, legs and hands, all holding weapons. Who else can hurt me? Such abiding in notions, behaviors cannot overcome the state of restoration after death. People with a poor nature of mind cannot face the powerful lethality due to a bad nature of mind. They will definitely fall to be reborn into the 3 lower realms, the realms of hells, hungry ghosts and animals. This is why our Dudjom Buddhist Association has worked so hard and strongly demands all disciples to cultivate their own nature of mind and strictly observe the precepts. Because it is for your own good. The strict enforcement means hard work for the masters. But without doing it, it will not help and save you. We cannot only confer empowerments to you and ask you to visualize yourselves to become a deity and tell you, this deity is extremely powerful. All demons in the three realms are scared of him. But it is useless if your nature of mind is poor. Because the nature of mind is the only best way to help and save you, and it is also the most fundamental way. Without this foundation, no matter what you practice, it will only speed up your descent into the three lower realms. For example, you are excellent at visualization, it is very clear, and your visualization ability is very strong. It means that you can connect very quickly. But you have a poor nature of mind, and this is too bad, as you will quickly fall into the hell realm. Therefore, precepts have become the only channel and method that all Dharma practitioners can rely on as a rescue. So, the precepts are very important. That is why prior to entering into Nirvana, the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni admonished all to take the precepts as teachers, consider the precepts to be your gurus and observe the precepts when you are doing things. Otherwise, you will get into troubles. If they think that they are above everything else and there is no need to observe the precepts, but they have not reached the stage where they can do anything naturally without violating the precepts, they are just killing themselves. As most esoteric Buddhist practitioners today do not abide by the precepts, they are arrogant and are a group of so-called Dharma practitioners with extremely poor nature of mind. Many of them are superstitious in supernatural powers, miracles, feng shui, and extraordinary powers, but they are not really training the mind and practicing the holy Dharma. This is not the cultivation of the nature of mind. So, they will be in trouble. If their gurus and they themselves still insist not to observe the precepts, thinking it is superior not to do so, and hearing that those who do not observe the precepts are superb, and so they do not observe the precepts, and act arbitrarily thinking that going insane is the right way. One high-level so-and-so guru is also so crazy and believes that one needs to be crazy in order to be a guru. As such, he wants to be crazy too, so that he can do anything he wants. It is certain that most of these esoteric Buddhist practitioners today will inevitably fall and take rebirths into the three lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts and animals. They will definitely fall into one of them. We have already said that no matter you are an ordinary person, when you die you will encounter infinite release of information from the five aggregates, or you are a Dharma practitioner reaching a certain meditative state after death, you will also encounter the same situation where information of the five aggregates be released infinitely. Also, we must practice the holy Dharma following the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. That is why I have taught the Diamond Sutra for so long. Whether you are sentient beings or Dharma practitioners, you need to practice it. Otherwise, you will fall into lower rebirths. There is another situation where the information of the five aggregates will be released indefinitely. It is when the nervous system is out of balance. It is not necessarily that you will lose balance when you die, when you have practiced the Dharma to a certain meditative state. Some people will suddenly lose balance in their nervous system for no reason. What happens if your nervous system is out of balance? As I said earlier, you will laugh and cry for no reason. This is a type of mental illness, and it has a scientific name called manic depressive disorder. Sometimes you will suddenly get very excited and sometimes very depressed. That is, if the bliss in the high-level realizing and sensing is out of balance, one will suffer from this type of mental illness. Part, but not all, of the information of one's five aggregates will be released, and one will have fantasy, akuism and hallucination. Akuism means that when no one speaks, one will say he can hear many people talking to him. Also, one would say that he can see things that no one can see, and that the scene is amazing. These are hallucination and akuism. They also need the help from the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. There is also another phenomenon. When you die and after you have passed the state of restoration, you will begin to connect with substances. When you are connecting with substances, your karmic creditors will then connect with you and appear. In that state, that is, after the state of restoration is over, you enter into the state of material connection. At this time, you also need the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, to assist you. Why? Because at the same time, you could be connecting with your karmic creditors from countless past lives. The so-called demons, according to Buddhist sutras, can be categorized into many types, but there are mainly two kinds. One is the inner demon, or commonly referred to as the mind demon. It refers to desire and greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, arrogance, and suspicion. These 6 toxins, as well as incorrect perceptions, can lead to deviations in the personality and emotions of the whole person, and thus create obstacles. These are inner demons, or mind demons. The other one is the outer demon, such as karmic creditors. It could be a human, a ghost, or a heavenly being. When information of the 5 databases, or the 5 aggregates, is released infinitely, it usually starts with the inner demon, or mind demon. Because your nature of mind is not good, the 6 internal poisons of greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, arrogance, and suspicion will further trigger the emergence of outer demons. You will then connect these demons by yourself automatically, as these 6 toxins will automatically help you connect. When these 2 kinds of demons appear at the same time to attack you, you will easily fall and take rebirths into the 3 lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts, and animals. Therefore, we need to refer to the Diamond Sutra's oral pith instruction, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, at any time to help ourselves. As I said earlier, if the bliss increases and intensifies, if the realizing and sensing of bliss becomes too strong, you will go crazy. The first reason is that you abide in notions. The second is because you are not good at mind training. The third is the impact of qi. Some of the qi within yourself has gone astray. Even without meditation, the qi could go astray. If the nature of mind is not good, it will cause disorder and imbalance of the qi, and it will thus impact the nervous system, causing hallucination. For example, when some people get too angry, the qi in their body will ram wildly, leading to mental disorders. Or they get so agitated and want to jump off the car at that moment. In short, people will do things improperly. Therefore, high-level Dharma practice will emphasize one thing, which is absolute stillness. I can tell you that this sentence is an oral pith instruction. Absolute stillness, what is it for? That is, you cannot have any mental manipulation. Do not abide in notions means that you should not abide in notions. How can you abide in notions and manipulate your mind? It will be worse if you abide in notions and manipulate. For example, the Kagyu school's 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana is stipulated in this way. The Dudjom Buddhist Association does not distinguish between sects. In fact, the meditation method we teach, the 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana, is Kagyu school's Mahamudra teachings. Although we mainly provide the teachings of the Nyingma school, we will teach anything good from any sect that can benefit sentient beings, such as the Kagyu school's 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana. However, if the teaching guru is not up to standard, he will not emphasize it and does not even know that this is the highest of all oral pith instructions, that is, absolute stillness. There will be no such teachings if he does not know and understand its importance. And this will cause his disciples to lose balance when practicing the holy Dharma. Let me give you an example. I have a Dharma brother whose nature of mind is extremely bad. His heart is as black as ink. He tried every means to snatch the position to become a guru. He launched a class many years ago to teach the 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana, which infiltrated a lot of incorrect teachings. He did not realize that absolute stillness is an oral pith instruction. He did not know. He taught others that if our chi is impassable, the inner chi will be blocked, which would lead to practice failure. You must vigorously slap the blocked area for the chi to get through. He also told many stories about supernatural powers and weird things, which were not pure and genuine Buddhist holy Dharma. As a result, one of the students followed his method to practice, and in the process of his practice, his chi channels were blocked and then impacted. Consequently, he lost his balance and became delirious, and he started to go crazy. He was troubled by those chi which disturbed and impacted his nervous system, resulting in disorders and madness. But he always remembered what the Guru taught him: if the chi is blocked, one needs to slap vigorously to enable the chi to get through, and so he slapped himself vigorously. When he saw his son, given the disorders and madness, he felt that the chi of his son was also blocked. So, he grabbed his son and slapped his chest and back repeatedly. Then he felt that the chi of his wife was also blocked, and he also grabbed his wife and slapped her. His wife was so frightened when she saw him speaking incoherently, and she could not understand what he said. He was kind of saying that it would work by slapping, and she was afraid that he might beat his son to death, and so the wife called the police. The news appeared in different newspapers after the police was involved, disclosing the incident because of the teaching of meditation by so-and-so Buddhist center, and the meditation had turned into a beating. As a result, the incident was published in the newspapers and became a scandal. Therefore, if a guru is not up to standard, but he teaches by the book, or teach according to the 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana, taught by our root Guru Master Lao. However, he himself has no practical experience, and he still claims himself to be a guru, but only emphasizes superstition and supernatural powers, saying that the chi can be unblocked by slapping, without even know the oral pith instructions. When we teach our disciples the 7-point postures of Buddha Vairocana, we will remind them to be quiet, and the oral pith instruction is absolute stillness. I will teach them to be quiet, and absolutely not to manipulate the mind. Otherwise, those chi will run around chaotically. We will teach them they must be absolute stillness. There are different stages, what needs to be applied at a particular stage, and which stage to apply nothing. All of these should be taught. Of course, this person did not teach these and resulted in major problems. Moreover, he taught wrongly, and the incorrect teachings had caused a much bigger problem, because the impact of chi had driven one into a state of madness. Fourthly, imbalance of the channels. If your channels are blocked, causing the chi to be blocked, this will make the airflow unable to get through those points, and so it will go in the wrong direction, and result taking the wrong way. This is due to the Dharma practitioner's nature of mind being poor. All the disciples we teach have to observe precepts and cultivate the nature of mind, while others do not emphasize precepts and nature of mind. If the Dharma practitioner's nature of mind is not good, the teaching guru is not up to standard and is incapable of solving these problems, the Dharma practitioner will lose his balance and go insane. Fifthly, the turbidity of the wisdom drops. The wisdom drops are the essence in the body. As I said earlier, a practice method of esoteric Buddhism is to cultivate channels, breaths, and wisdom drops. If the wisdom drops, the essence, become turbid, it will affect the images projected by the mind. Whether you are dreaming or seeing some projections in your daily life, it is because the wisdom drops are too cloudy. It will cause hallucination and akuism. If the Dharma practitioner's nature of mind is poor and cannot be improved, and if the guru is not up to standard and does not know how to solve the problem, the Dharma practitioner will lose his balance. Please pay attention to the fact that when one is abiding in notions in the state of bliss, it means that both his mind training and nature of mind are poor. Poor mind training means poor nature of mind, which will cause the imbalance of chi. Poor nature of mind, the teaching guru not up to standard, as well as the flow of qi being blocked and going astray, are all factors that lead to the consequence of madness. Turbid wisdom drops, coupled with a poor nature of mind, will cause problems. Have you noticed that these 5 elements that make you crazy are all associated with a poor nature of mind? This shows one thing: the quality of the nature of mind determines everything, and it also determines how you will be reborn. I have just explained what the demon of a spiritual crisis is. In fact, it is a phenomenon that occurs due to insufficient mind training, meditational power, and understanding of emptiness. I have already explained the first reason, which is caused by the infinite release of information from the 5 databases of the 5 aggregates. The second is because when one has practiced the holy Dharma to a certain degree and the signs of bliss, luminosity, no thought, have arisen. If the bliss increases and becomes too strong, one will go crazy. Thirdly, the misperceptions. Why does this make you crazy? We will now explain the perceptions. Another important reason is that some Dharma practitioners mistakenly believe that emptiness is 1. Breaking all conceptual thinking. 2. Ignoring the right and wrong of all their behaviors and thinking that there is no need to observe the precepts. 3. Ignoring the law of causes and effects, as if there is no law of causes and effects. I am now on the verge of attaining Buddhahood, and I am the Buddha. 4. Ignoring the precepts, as if there are no precepts. 5. Cutting off the awareness of all judgments, and there is no need to judge what is right or wrong. Because the Heart Sutra and the Diamond Sutra say that there is nothing, so there is no need to make any judgment. The main problem is that they fail to see the no-voidness aspect of the oral pith instruction of emptiness. It should be the situation that no one teaches them. The guru is not up to standard and fails to teach them that one should have the awareness, and so, they think there is nothing. Without the awareness, one would become an idiot breaking away from any judgment. Such a misperception will cause the nature of mind falling into an unconstrained, crazy state, or a state of lost, unable to know what to follow. When one encounters the infinite release of information and infinite influence of the 6 toxins, such as greed, hatred and ignorance, etc., and the impact of negative emotional energy, one will fall into a state of madness. These are errors due to misperceptions, which will drive you crazy. Let's take a look at this person's letter now. It states that a guru of the Kagyu school claims that there are 4 stages in one's holy Dharma practice. I can tell you that this is wrong. What is right? In fact, this Dharma practitioner's inadequacy of mind training, meditational power, and understanding of emptiness is the cause of his madness. It is not because you are going to become a Buddha, so you must be mad. Yes, the final stage of attaining Buddhahood will encounter some great difficulties. In fact, you will also encounter them when you die, and you must overcome them. But it does not mean you must or will be mad. It is not necessary to be crazy to attain Buddhahood. Those Dharma practitioners who cannot overcome such difficulties and become crazy cannot attain Buddhahood. How can you attain Buddhahood if you have already gone insane? Why does someone from the Kagyu school say this? Not only one person holds this view, but many others who follow the Kagyu school. I will now explain to you why they have said this. A founding guru of the Kagyu school had already written down the cause for craziness in about the 12th century. Why do they still not understand? Why do they still say this? They are also from the Kagyu school. There is a reason for it, because in history many founding gurus of the Kagyu school, and even other sects, not necessarily the Kagyu school, could not overcome the difficulties during the process of holy Dharma practice, which eventually led to madness. They had many disciples, and some would ask their disciples or the guru of that sect, "A great and famous Rinpoche has gone mad now and does things indiscriminately. Why is this happening? Is there a problem with the teachings of your sect? Why did he go crazy?" As a disciple, would you say that your master becomes crazy because of the poor Dharma practice? Would you answer the question in this way? Certainly not. And those gurus of the same sect, in order to protect the reputation and interests of their own sect, would they say that it was because he did not practice the Dharma well? Would they say that? It is like officials shielding one another, and in this case, gurus shield one another. They will not answer you in this way, but they will say that he went crazy because he had practiced the Dharma very well, and he went crazy when he was about to attain Buddhahood. It is incredible, as he is going to attain Buddhahood. It is a kind of wisdom, not going crazy. It is called the crazy wisdom. They would use a lot of explanations to defend him, and after being spread continuously, it becomes what everyone says today, that one must go mad before attaining Buddhahood. This is called the crazy wisdom. Therefore, many bookstores in the market sell a lot of books on crazy wisdom. Terms such as crazy wisdom, chaotic wisdom, crazy intelligence, mad intelligence, and so on have emerged one after another. I tried to buy a copy and read it, wanting to know how they would describe the crazy wisdom. It turns out that there are all these naughty thoughts in it, and their minds are so confused and messed up that they do not understand anything. They also talk about Zen, which is very high realms that only exist in Zen meditation, and they keep referring it as Zen. But everything described in it does not make sense, causing people great confusion. They go around and there is no way out, leading people into a blind alley or a dead end. I look at things in a very incisive way, and I can see where the key points are at a glance. After reading their books, I only felt that I was kept walking in circles, which made me dizzy. Obviously, this is a rather simple matter to me, something that I could tell the answer immediately, but the author keeps going around in circles, not only without any explanation, but also leading people into a dead end. It will be hard not to go crazy after reading the book. They claim it to be a kind of wisdom, which is simply teaching people to go crazy. So, remember not to buy these books and read them. I had a headache after reading them. If you read and are affected by them, the consequences will be unimaginable. I don't know how you will go crazy, so do not read them and do not buy them. So, many Dharma practitioners who follow the Kagyu school believe that crazy wisdom is a very advanced, a phenomenon of successful holy Dharma practice, which is praiseworthy. This is an incorrect understanding and a great insult to esoteric Buddhism. According to the new translation of the Essential Uncommon Teachings of Mahamudra, compiled by Daba Middenmingda Ligon, one of the founding gurus of Kagyu school, when was this book written? It was written between the 12th century and the 13th century. The crazy wisdom is actually a phenomenon of losing a certain balance. It is a shortcoming that must be corrected immediately. This was said by the founding gurus of the Kagyu school in the earlier centuries. Why is there such a big difference between what was said in the past 10 centuries and what is said in the 20th century now? Is it that you are getting worse in your Dharma practice, or that you are trying to cover things up, or that you are ignorant? I have no idea. Anyway, that's not what being said before. So, if you see a Dharma practitioner acting madly and does not observe the precepts, it means that he has fallen into deviation, hallucinations and arrogance of practice fault, rather than the so-called crazy wisdom. They even named it wisdom, and the person who named it must be also crazy. The exoteric Buddhism describes the process of attaining Buddhahood as 8 deeds. According to Buddhist sutras, all Buddhas attained Buddhahood in the human realm and accomplished perfection of the Buddha fruit. When a bodhisattva has gone through extensive cultivation of the 6 paramitas, the virtues, merits, and wisdom are about to be completed and perfected, and is just one step away from attaining Buddhahood, the bodhisattva must first ascend to the heaven of Pure Land located in the inner courtyard of the Tusita heaven, which is at the 4th level of the realm of desire, and wait there to attain Buddhahood. Buddhism refers this as Ekajata Pratibhada, that is, the Bodhisattva in taking up a Buddha's place in his next life. That is, the Bodhisattva needs to be reborn and practices the holy Dharma for one more lifetime to make up for the deficiencies before he can attain Buddhahood. When the time as well as the causes and conditions are ripe for attaining Buddhahood, the Bodhisattva will descend from this heaven to the human realm. The 8 processes of the Ekajatapratipada Bodhisattva descends from the Tusita heaven into the human realm, enters the womb, takes birth, manifests as a monk, subdues the demons, attains Buddhahood, turns the wheel of the holy Dharma and enters into Nirvana, are called the 8 deeds. You can see clearly. 1. Descent from the Tusita. 2. Enter the womb. 3. Take birth. 4. Become a monk. 5. Subdue the demons. 6. Attain Buddhahood. 7. Turn the wheel of the holy Dharma and 8. Enter into Nirvana. Let's take a look at subduing demons. We said that demons can be divided into inner demons and outer demons. How are they formed? There are 3 reasons as mentioned earlier. First, because the infinite information of the 5 aggregates is released. Second, because bliss, luminosity, no thought arise, and the bliss becomes too strong so one goes crazy. Third, misperceptions cause demonic obstacles. You also need Diamond Sutra's oral pith instruction, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions, and the Heart Sutra's oral pith instruction, the 5 aggregates as emptiness, to deal with. But you have to remember that these 2 are only the neither existence aspect of the oral pith instructions, emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. The nor voidness aspect has yet to be taught. Most of the Diamond Sutra only describes the practice of emptiness, neither existence. However, there are very few descriptions and practice methods on emptiness, nor voidness. The Heart Sutra only describes the situations of neither existence aspect of emptiness, but not that of nor voidness aspect of emptiness. As a result, many Dharma practitioners only know how to concentrate on the situation of emptiness, neither existence, to practice the holy Dharma, especially the exoteric Buddhists, who do not understand the practice methods of the Great Perfection, so they cannot make up for the shortcomings. By only reading the Buddhist sutras and sastras to practice the holy Dharma, if you miss something you will miss it. And you will misunderstand to think nothing at all means success in holy Dharma practice. The result is that many exoteric Buddhists have failed in their Dharma practice, because the nor voidness aspect of emptiness is missed to balance the practice. So, when we explain emptiness, nor voidness in the future, we will supplement a bit more. However, we will only supplement the application levels in daily life. In terms of holy Dharma practice, and the way to practice different levels of the Great Perfection of the esoteric Buddhism, we cannot teach you openly, but only to some qualified disciples. As I said before, you must be our disciple so that we can monitor the situation of your holy Dharma practice, help and teach you if there is something that needs to be answered immediately. But if the disciple does not listen to you, even if he has already taken refuge from you, he still cannot be taught, as he will simply not respond to your teachings. One of Diamond Sutra's oral pith instructions is, should not abide anywhere, and do not abide in notions. Why does the Diamond Sutra teach sentient beings, should not abide anywhere and do not abide in notions? It is because any person will encounter these situations in the bardo state after death. They will fall into a state of madness, or become too agitated, leading to a fall and take rebirths into the 3 lower realms, hells, hungry ghosts and animals. Therefore, falling into a crazy state is not the result of practicing esoteric Buddhism, but a phenomenon that will occur to anyone, so do not confuse it with the esoteric Buddhist practice. This is an insult to esoteric Buddhism. Let me show you what is described in the later part of the new translation of the Essential Uncommon Teachings of Mahamudra. It states that if concentrate on bliss, if you abide in realizing and sensing of bliss, reincarnate immediately into the desire realm, you will be reborn into the desire realm right away. If concentrate on luminosity, if you abide in the notions of luminosity, reincarnate immediately into the form realm, you will be reborn into the form realm right away. If concentrate on no thought, reincarnate immediately into the formless realm. All these three not taken, if one does not abide, or attach to any of these three, realizing and sensing, it is the right path, this is the right way, you will not reincarnate, but you will if you abide in any of the realizing and sensing. Let's look again now, and I have taught you this before. What are the three realms? The desire realm, the realms of hells, hungry ghosts and animals, including the human realm, are all in the desire realm. Will you be so lucky to be reborn into the realm of heavens, while you are obsessed with bliss? It depends on which side of your imbalance. Take manic depressive disorder as an example. Which side are you deviated to? The manic or depression? In fact, it fluctuates very quickly and could change within a second. So, you will not know where you will be reborn. Your virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, and your nature of mind all need to be taken into consideration. Adding together, you will find that the chance of taking rebirth into the three lower realms is very high. It will be the same even if you have practiced the holy Dharma to a very high level and the state of bliss appears. What is the form realm? As mentioned, if you are obsessed with luminosity, you will be reborn into the form realm. This will be different. If you are attached to luminosity, at least you will not have the mental illness, or manic depression disorder. It can be considered good to be attached to luminosity, and reborn into the heavens of the form realm. At least, you will not fall into the hell realm. If you persist on the no thought, you will be trapped in the formless realm. When you lose concentration, you will immediately fall into the three lower realms. It is terrible when you lose concentration, as you will fall instantly. Among the three realms, the form realm is the best. Of course, it is best to attain Buddhahood. If you must step down, it is best to go to the form realm. Where are all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? They are all in the Akanistha, as I said before. The bliss of the high-level realizing and sensing, bliss, luminosity, no thought, has been explained today. Luminosity and no thought will be explained in the next session. Why? Because I received an email on the 5th of March 2019. The explanation of this email will involve the questions of the nature of mind. Since I have explained the importance of the nature of mind, I will also explain this email. The content of the email is, to the Honorable Master Pema, although I have not successfully passed the test and taken refuge from the Master, I am very grateful to your propagation of the Holy Dharma and teaching on the YouTube. I very much agree with your recent talk on the drawbacks of Buddha chanting method of the Pure Land School of Buddhism. However, I am confused about the method of chanting assistance, which can soften the deceased's body and enable him to be reborn into the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss. This seems to be a good thing if there is an auspicious sign appearing. The Dharma brothers who contribute to the collective chanting assistance have a great bodhisattva heart. No matter how busy they are willing to participate 24 hours a day in chanting Namo Amitabha. In China, some Dharma brothers also bravely go to suicide scenes to perform the pujas for the deceased. Most of them do not mind going to mortuaries and funeral homes to take part in collective chanting assistance on overnight shifts. They will be there as soon as they are called. With absolute dedication, they do not charge anything at all. It is very moving to see such devotions. They are referred to as Buddha Amitabha's messengers. It is said that it is of great virtuous merits of countless lifetimes to be able to assist people to reach the West to attain Buddhahood. This is wrong. Reaching the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss does not mean attaining Buddhahood. The Dharma realm is a state of oneness while the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss is within the three realms and is in a dualistic or multiplistic state, and so it is different. It does not mean that one can enter the Dharma realm, restore the state of oneness, and attain Buddhahood. This is not the case. Going to the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss is not the same as attaining Buddhahood. You can only take refuge there only for a while. They are also grateful to the deceased and his family members. In other words, it is not the family members of the deceased who thank the people who provide chanting assistance, but the people who provide chanting assistance thank the deceased and his family. Although I am not actively involved in chanting assistance, I am moved by their bodhisattva spirit. He asked, is chanting assistance really useful? Firstly, is it really useful? And does it follow the Dharma practice method? Well, you have to understand the fact that they have a great bodhicitta does not mean that the methods they use are of high success rate. The two are different. Their behavior can cultivate compassion and will be very helpful for them to arouse that awareness of bodhicitta in the future. That is why they must turn around and thank the deceased and his family. The method with high success rate must work together with visualization. Without visualization, it is a method of low success rate. This has been explained in the previous sessions. Attaining Buddhahood must work with emptiness, neither existence nor voidness. Without neither existence nor voidness, but only neither existence, will not work, otherwise one will lose balance. One must work together with the neither existence nor voidness of emptiness in order to attain Buddhahood. This cannot be achieved by chanting assistance. Only those who do not understand the Buddhist holy Dharma would claim that the deceased can reach the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss and attain Buddhahood with the assistance of collective chanting. As mentioned earlier, if you have a poor nature of mind, even if you comprehend the visualization practice method with excellent holy Dharma practice ability, and you attain to a high level where all signs of bliss, luminosity, no thought have appeared, you will still fall into a state of craziness and lose that awareness. One can imagine, this is also the case for Dharma practitioners with a poor nature of mind, let alone other ordinary people. Therefore, the nature of mind is the key point. The state of craziness can easily make them fall and take rebirths in the three lower realms, the realms of hells, hungry ghosts and animals. If we take part in collective chanting assistance, it will only work if the deceased is a person with very sound nature of mind. Otherwise, the failure rate is still very high. Things can still go wrong even for those who know how to practice the holy Dharma. If you do not know how to practice the Dharma, and have to rely on others for chanting assistance, and if your nature of mind is not good and you want to have a high success rate, don't you think it is absurd? This is not an issue that we can help if we are compassionate. Can we change the deceased's nature of mind to become good with compassion? Of course not. If possible, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would have done it already. Even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas cannot solve the problem of deviations of sentient beings' nature of mind. They can only keep on giving advice and encouragement by means of education. The Lord Buddha taught for 49 years, and his disciples had left countless Buddhist sutras. Many of them are incomprehensible, because they are too profound and without detailed explanation. No one can be asked, and no one can answer. You can be even more confused if you do not like listening to the Buddhist holy Dharma, and no one explains it to you. But no matter what, you must remember that whether the nature of mind is good or not, it must be taught through education. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni also had to explain the holy Dharma in detail. I often speak so hard, and I have to prepare presentation slides with subtitles popped up for you, in the hope to help as many sentient beings as possible and to make you understand, and so I have to write and speak so much. In other words, it must go through education. It is impossible that your nature of mind can be improved by simply waving a magic wand. If it is possible, there is no need to explain so much and practice the holy Dharma anymore. Similarly, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have no way to use their supernatural powers. No matter how advanced the level of their holy Dharma practice, they cannot use their supernatural powers to lead the sentient beings with a poor nature of mind to take rebirth into a better place. It is not achievable. In addition to whether the nature of mind is good or bad, it also depends on their own virtuous and evil karmic portfolio. These are the real factors that determine where the deceased can be reborn. Those who take part in chanting assistance can only do their best, but they are not the deciding factor that determines the successful rebirths. The factors that can decisively influence the success of rebirths are still determined by the deceased himself. This is the law of causes and effects. The persons who provide the chanting assistance should be careful if they have a deviated nature of mind. If this phenomenon appears, the deceased who has ghost supernatural powers after death can realize those chanting assistants who are not very good and have many deluded thoughts. They chant Namo Amitabha, but think of other things in their minds. The deceased would think it is terrible, causing him to come up with the 6 toxins: greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, arrogance, and suspicion. In addition, his nature of mind will become hysterical. This can harm the deceased. You must bear in mind that the dead will be angry. When he is angry, he will become emotional and complain why you have brought these people here. It is impossible for him to cover his ears not to listen, because the people keep on chanting with their poor nature of mind. This will affect the nature of mind of the deceased. The deceased who cannot drive them away will be very angry, barging around, or even drifting away from the scene, not knowing where he has gone. It would then cause an issue and implicate the deceased. Therefore, those who take part in collective chanting assistance also need to have a sound nature of mind. The deciding factors to a successful rebirth, as mentioned earlier, are your nature of mind, the virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, and whether you know the Dharma practice. Whether the practice method incorporates visualization, and whether the visualizations are shortcuts, are all deciding factors. Let me talk about the nature of mind. The nature of mind of the dead must be good, and the nature of mind of the people who provide chanting assistance must be good, too. In terms of virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, his virtuous karma must be greatly increased, while his evil karma must be reduced as much as possible. How to largely increase his virtuous karma? It is to make virtuous merits extensively for him and then dedicate those merits to him. When someone unconditionally gives alms to the deceased to take part in collective chanting assistance, it is unconditional, and he arrives upon request and provides chanting assistance on a 24-hour shift. Part of the deceased's virtuous karma will be deducted and reserved to pay back to the person who give alms to him in the future. Why? This is automatically occurred based on the law of causes and effects. Where there is acceptance, there must be giving. When you help a person, and that person accepts it, even if you help him unconditionally, and he does not repay you, do not think it is good to take advantage of others, or even insatiably greedy. The result is that the virtuous karma of the deceased will be deducted and cannot be used. Even if the almsgiver says that there is no need to return, nature will automatically execute the law of causes and effects. Because this is how nature works, where there is a cause, there will be an effect. If the almsgiver does not expect anything in return, his virtuous rewards will be even better, because he does not abide in notions. He gives alms to you as a cause by providing chanting assistance, and he will be better off. But the deceased will also be affected by the law of causes and effects, and part of his virtuous merits will be withheld and cannot be used immediately, so that it can be used to repay that person in the future. So, as the old saying goes, the donor gives a grain of millet. I only give you a grain of millet, or a grain of rice, such a small thing, and if you do not repay it immediately, and hope to repay it in future when you practice the holy Dharma well, you will have to repay more with daily interest applied. The karmic pull of the law of causes and effects is more and more entangled, which is like the accumulated interest. It will be as heavy as Mount Sumeru. If you repay him late, it will be as big as Mount Sumeru. If you cannot be liberated in this life, if you cannot enter into the Dharma realm, or you cannot enter into the Buddha's pure lands and hide there temporarily in the hope of succeeding the Dharma practice, there will be more debts to repay once you have fallen again. If you cannot be liberated in this life, you must pay back by wearing hairs and horns. At the very least, you have to be an animal. Wearing hair and horns means that you must become an animal to repay. So, you must remember that in order to avoid weakening the deceased virtuous karma, if you accept almsgivings from anyone and they come to provide the collective chanting assistance, you must do either an equal or even more virtuous merits to balance. Do it as soon as possible or immediately. Do not wait for a month or two. By that time, the deceased may have already been reborn somewhere, not knowing where he has taken rebirth, and it could be a very bad place. Do not be greedy and accept the alms because the almsgivers are out of their total devotion and do not receive a penny. Please remember that you must give back. Anyway, you have to pay as much as you accept. Otherwise, it will affect the rebirths of the deceased to be downgraded due to insufficient virtuous karma. Because everything has two sides. If the person who accepts almsgivings does not make either an equal or even more virtuous merits, because of greed, the virtuous karma of the deceased will be deducted and kept for future repayment. It is like part of the virtuous karma being frozen and cannot be used instantly. The chanting assistance alone is not powerful enough, and it can only bring a kind of comfort assistance to the deceased. For example, the mind of the deceased will be more stable, feeling supported and assisted, and less panic. So, the body of the deceased will change from stiffness to softness. This is how the signs come about. You have to make the rescue virtuous merits or make offerings for the deceased. You need to do these for the deceased. For example, perform the Dharma practice of 100 peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo state to accumulate rescue virtuous merits, or make offerings. The 100 peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo state include Bodhisattva Kshetrabha, Amitabha, Guanyin, and the rest of the other 100 deities. Regardless of peaceful deities or wrathful deities, all other deities, who can help you to drive away all the karmic creditors, must be included in the Dharma practice, in order to seek a balance. When you only practice for one single or peaceful deities, the effect will not be great if your own ability, or the ability of the person who performs the ritual for you is not powerful enough. According to Sutra of the Fundamental Vows of the Bodhisattva Kshetrabha, virtuous merit is best made during the lifetime. After death, if the relatives do it on his behalf and the relatives pay the money, the deceased can only receive 1/7 of the virtuous merits, and the rest go to the persons who make the virtuous merits. Therefore, it is best to also use the name of the deceased as the meritorious benefactor when dedicating merits, so that the deceased can receive most of the virtuous merits. In the law of causes and effects, why do you accept something from others, and you must pay back in the future? Why is this? The principle is very simple, because there is something called almsgiving in the law of causes and effects. Why did the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni order all his disciples to beg for alms? The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni was a crown prince. He was the heir to the throne. After the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni has attained Buddhahood, his father was willing to dedicate the whole country's efforts to support the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni and persuaded him not to beg for alms. He felt that it was disgraceful and indecent if the prince had to beg for alms. He had attained Buddhahood. As noble as a Buddha, why did he still have to beg for alms, go from house to house, and accept offerings from others to provide his own clothing, food, shelter and transportation? The king, his father, would definitely have the ability to support the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni. But why did he refuse to do so? Why did the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni insist on begging for alms? Apart from the fact that in the process of alms begging, the Dharma practitioner's arrogance can be removed, so why did the Lord Buddha still have to beg for alms, when he had already attained Buddhahood and had no more arrogance? The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni often begged with a bowl himself. He was applying the law of causes and effects. As long as there is acceptance, there must be repayment. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni wanted to make good and wide connections with sentient beings from all walks of life in the hope that he was able to save them in the future. So, he would like to create these opportunities to make good connections with sentient beings. This is the reason why he begged for alms. It was to make good connections with sentient beings. Anyone who made offerings to him, and the Buddha accepted it, it is the Holy One who is worthy of receiving offerings from others. So, one of the titles of Buddhas is called the Holy One who is worthy of receiving offerings from others. He could not refuse to receive the offer. When others offered something to him, he could not refuse to accept it. Refusing to accept would be considered a violation of precept. Once he accepted it, as that the Holy One who is worthy of receiving offerings from others, he must repay it in the future. How to repay it? It is to help this sentient being to be liberated from the ocean of sufferings, so that he can succeed in the Dharma practice in the future. This is the cause and effect relationship. If you provide chanting assistance to someone, you are giving alms as you do not charge a penny after that. I would suggest that anyone who accepts this kind of alms has to plant virtuous merits to repay it. How to plant virtuous merits? Needless to say, helping to propagate the Buddhist holy Dharma is the best way to correspond and repay this kind of almsgivings. So even if the person who provides chanting assistance does not need your repayment, it will affect the deceased if you do not pay it back, because it will freeze part of the deceased's virtuous karma. However, if you accept it and say that you will definitely pay it back, and you are putting that into actions, such as helping to promote the holy Dharma and offering refreshments and comfortable seats to the people who provide chanting assistance. You need to serve them well, and you cannot ignore them because the chanting assistants come voluntarily. The family members of the deceased must be present, serve and make offerings to those who provide chanting assistance. For example, offer meals and provide other corresponding things to them. If the chanting assistant refuses to receive financial offerings, you can use the financial offerings on Buddhist deeds. You must make some corresponding virtuous merits, and you cannot simply accept and not repay it. Otherwise, this will not be good. I am explaining to let you know that the Lord Buddha Shakyamuni also responded to the cause and effect relationship by asking his disciples to go out to beg for alms, and let sentient beings offer them, so the disciples must repay them in the future. Through the ability of their Dharma practice, they would help those who had ever made an offering to them. The Lord Buddha Shakyamuni said that only repentance can remove our old karmic obstacles and evil karma, and there is no other way. So, what should you do if you want to help the deceased to minimize his evil karma as much as possible? You need to make repentance, virtuous merits, and offerings for the deceased. The 100 peaceful and wrathful deities mentioned earlier is a method of salvation. If you want to help the deceased to get rid of evil karma, you need to make repentance-related virtuous merits, such as the practice of Vajrasattva, to remove obstacles in making virtuous merits or offerings. This method of eliminating obstacles is excellent as it includes visualization. Do not kill and use meat offering to worship the dead. Do not say anything bad about the deceased. Do not talk about his right or wrong or anything that stir up his emotions. All these which could stimulate the emotions of the deceased cannot be said. To give an example, I had a disciple called Su Or. You will know who Su Or is if you have watched the lecture video, a rare real-life case with witness and adequate descriptions on the rebirth in the Western Pure Land of Ultimate Bliss. She was my disciple, and has successfully taken rebirth into the Western Pure Land of Ultimate Bliss. Her nature of mind scored highly, and she had a sound nature of mind. Did she have much virtuous karma? The Avatamsaka Sutra divides alms offering into, firstly, Dharma offerings, which can be further divided into listening, analyzing and meditating, that is, hearing and listening, thinking and analyzing, as well as meditating and practicing the holy Dharma. Su all attended all Dharma events. I stipulate that all my disciples must attend all smoke offering and Upavasata Dharma events that recite the precepts. They cannot refuse to attend. She was very obedient and always attended. She was never absent unless she was too ill to get out of the bed, unlike some of my disciples, who do not attend when they go on a holiday, which is considered a violation of the precept. However, she was relatively weak in the aspects of analyzing and meditating. Su all did not know them well. She listened to the Dharma teachings, but did not know how to think and analyze, and she did not know the Dharma practice well. As such, Su all lost a lot of points when it comes to Dharma offerings. According to Buddhist sutras, one must go and listen to the holy Dharma teachings within 40 yojanas, which is a very big area, bigger than the whole of Hong Kong. If it is your guru's Dharma teachings, you as the disciple must go and listen. It is considered a violation of precept if you do not attend the Dharma event, because you go on a holiday. The guru must execute the precepts and warn the disciples who must be punished if they ignore. Otherwise, the disciples will continue to sink at such a state. The guru will not be able to save them even if he wants to. The second type of offering is called offerings of services. Su all did not do any work to help promote the Dharma for the association due to her age. However, Su all's daughter and son-in-law have done a lot to make up the deficiencies. For this reason, the two masters practiced the holy Dharma for Su all. Thirdly, material offerings. Su all did not have much money. She relied on her children to support her financially. However, she contributed all her pocket money as offerings, such as lamp offerings and other Buddhist things. She had enough on material offerings. Why was it sufficient for her even if she offered so little? Because it is calculated as a percentage of your total assets. For instance, the Catholics also require the disciples to donate 1/10 of their salary every month. The same principle applies in Buddhism. The Buddhist sutras state that if you do not have much money, but are willing to donate all your pocket money to promote the holy Dharma like Su all, the score for the material offerings will be very high, 80 or 90 points, which is sufficient. The question is that one must have all three levels of offerings in order to be perfect and complete. Su all had deficiencies in Dharma offerings, so the score was not enough. Fortunately, this was helped by the material offerings. Otherwise, the score would be very low. Su all had never repented in public during the Upatantra Dharma events. That is, she had not significantly reduced her evil karma. Therefore, her evil karma accumulated through countless past lives has not been eliminated, because she had never repented in public. I provide this opportunity to all my disciples and hold Upatantra Dharma events, where they can recite the precepts and repent in public. The purpose is to help them significantly reduce the evil karma while they are alive, as there will be no such an opportunity after death. Things can change rapidly after death, very fast. Only when one is still alive things pass slowly, minute by minute. Of course, it is best to confess while one is still alive. She did not do this, probably because she thought she had nothing to repent. But she did not understand that there must be something to repent from countless past lives. If one does not do it, it will keep accumulating. She never did it, so she had not cleared any evil karma. Did she know how to practice the holy Dharma? No, she did not. She only knew how to recite Namo Amitabha, and therefore she did not have enough power to get to the Buddha's pure lands by herself. The gurus performed the Dharma practice twice for her to make up the deficiencies. The first was within the 2 hours of Su-Aul death. The two masters performed the Dharma practice for her alone. Only Master Yeshe and I performed the Dharma practice to help her. After the first practice, although she was able to be reborn into a Buddha's pure lands with the assistance of the two masters, the flowers did not bloom to enable her to see the Buddhas. Therefore, no one could see Su-Aul in the dream to know her situation during that period. You will find that Su-Aul's score was not high enough, and she needed her daughter and son-in-law to make up the deficiencies. But her nature of mind was good, and because of that, the gurus felt that it stood a high chance to succeed if they performed the Dharma practice to help her. Secondly, although her virtuous and evil karmic portfolio did not increase or decrease much, she did make material offerings, and contributed a very high percentage of her pocket money as offerings, which made her score high in this aspect. In terms of Dharma offerings, however, she only knew how to recite Namo Amitabha Buddha, but did not know how to visualize. Nevertheless, she had practiced the holy Dharma diligently and made offerings, even though the strength between the two Dharma practice methods is very different. So, the overall scores were not high. But she was very lucky to still have the virtuous rewards of her virtuous karma. Why were we able to practice the holy Dharma for her within 2 hours of her death? Why the sooner the better? It is because soon after death, the state of restoration has already begun, and it could be transitioning very fast. It is uncertain whether one will encounter any issue during that time. So, the quicker to practice it for her, the better. Why were we able to help her so quickly? We usually do not respond to calls and emails immediately. Why was she so lucky? Because of her good virtuous rewards and her excellent virtuous karma accumulated. Therefore, doing good deeds is really helpful. On the day of her death, it happened that her daughter had to sit for an exam due to a violation of precepts before. So, she was required to take a test. Because her daughter had often made and accumulated a lot of virtuous merits, so the two masters conducted the exam for her in person. They conducted the exam in the form of a face-to-face interview, instead of her taking a written test in the association where the gurus will not be present. With much sympathetic considerations on her who was very paranoid, I felt that I needed to teach her in person. She would never be able to change if it was in the form of a paper exam, and so I decided to help her given that she had done so many virtuous merits. Su-Aul was still at home lying in bed when her daughter left. She wished her success in the exam, and so she left for the exam. She received a phone call during the exam saying that her mother had an accident. Her Indonesian helper immediately called an ambulance, and she was confirmed passed away on arrival to the hospital. As soon as she knew it, she told us immediately. I said that the exam should be suspended. Instead, I taught her the things that she needed to do when she got to the hospital. We did not follow to the hospital. We would not go to the hospital, because we must choose a place with a very good magnetic field when we perform a Dharma practice, that is, the Buddhist center. We happened to be in the Buddhist center, and so there was no need to take transportation to the Buddhist center, which would take at least half an hour. Because her virtuous rewards were so good, it happened that we were in the Buddhist center, and received the news within 2 hours of her death, and we were able to teach her daughter immediately for the preparation works when she arrived at the hospital. We then performed the Dharma practice in the best magnetic field, that is, the Buddhist center. These are all resulted from Su-Aul's good virtuous rewards. Do you have the same good virtuous rewards as hers? I don't think so. Because this is a coincidence of coincidences. We should have taken her to the pure land of ultimate bliss after the first Dharma practice. However, as she had never repented in public, many obstacles had not been removed. Therefore, the flowers did not bloom for her to see the Buddha when she got there. Coincidentally, on the fourth day after Su Or's death was our Upavasata Dharma event, where we recited the precepts. If that was missed, she would have to wait for a month. A lot of things could happen in 1 month. On the fourth day after her death, it was Upavasata. It was good luck plus good luck. In fact, it was not good luck, but her good virtuous rewards. So, it was a great coincidence. When reciting precepts and repenting during the Upavasata Dharma event, we applied its cleanest and purest powers of precepts and samayas in forming a protective shield of the electromagnetic field. Because the moment after reciting the precepts is the cleanest and purest, everyone's vows are in the pure state of samaya. All the disciples who participated in reciting the precepts and provided her chanting assistance were in the purest and most peaceful state. As I said, people who provide chanting assistance must have a sound nature of mind, and that moment was the best state. If the Guru wants to help people perform a Dharma practice, he should know how to choose when and in what state. It happened to be in this state at that time. After reciting the precepts, everyone's consciousness had been cleaned and purified. Then we performed the second Dharma practice. At the Buddhist center, all the Gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were invited to come to witness, as well as assist in the Dharma practice and chanting. Why do we invite all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to come to the Upavasata Dharma event? They must be invited if it is a repenting Dharma ceremony. They may not be invited if it is an ordinary event, but they must be invited to the Upavasata to monitor the recitation of the precepts and repentance. The two masters led all the disciples to recite the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, to repent for Su Or, while the two masters performed the practice of Vajrasattva, to remove obstacles, especially for her. As a result, following the Dharma practice, which took place in the evening, Su Or's Indonesian helper, Titik, was able to see her in the western pure land of ultimate bliss after a few hours around midnight. It was very fast, that is, it required sufficient power to make it happen. Right time, right place and favorable social conditions. Right time means that the cleanest and purest state of the Upavasata must be chosen so that the minds of the people who assisted in the collective chanting were sound and powerful enough. Right place is also necessary, and it could not be a hospital, because the magnetic field is very poor. There would be lots of obstacles and interferences if we performed visualization and helped her connect to a Buddha's pure land. It would be very bad if a wrong place was connected by mistake. Therefore, the Gurus will not go to the hospital, and will not practice the holy Dharma in the hospital. Instead, they will practice the holy Dharma in a Buddhist hall. Nor will they go to the suicide scene, because the resentment at the suicide scene is very strong. We will not practice there too. Instead, we will pull the suicide person out of the magnetic field, and will not let him stay at the suicide scene. Because the resentment at the suicide scene is so strong, he must be pulled to a better place in practicing the holy Dharma in order to help him. In terms of right place, what is the best location? It is at a Buddhist hall. Favorable social conditions means a group of disciples who have been strictly monitored by their gurus and taught to observe the precepts. They will at least adhere to some precepts, and so their nature of mind will not be too bad. They had already recited the precepts after the Upavasata, so everyone's minds were very clear. Moreover, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were invited to help. This was the best stage in terms of social conditions. So, the success was due to readiness of right time, right place and favorable social conditions. Apart from nature of mind and virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, what are the factors involving the Guru that can determine the success or failure in helping the deceased? Attention should also be paid to the following conditions. First, if Su Or did not take refuge from a Guru, she would be an ordinary person. She would not have faith towards a Guru, and there would not be a Guru to practice the holy Dharma for her. If the person has no confidence in the Guru, he will not listen to your teachings even if you practice the holy Dharma for him. Without the guru-disciple relationship, the Dharma practice will not be direct. Because when the guru negotiates with her karmic creditors, he cannot make any promise and guarantee. If the guru and disciple do not know each other, the result will be far less effective. Hence, the master must understand your nature of mind and the situation first before practicing the holy Dharma for you, so that he can prescribe the right medicine for the right disease to help you. Different Dharma practices as rescue and remedy will make a huge difference for you. If Su Or's master did not have such an ability, and did not know what I just explained, it would be a failure. If she had no confidence in her guru, these Dharma practices would also fail. If you tell someone to go to the east and he goes to the west instead, how can you save him? He cannot be saved. Therefore, the magnetic field that assists the deceased in the practice must be good. Otherwise, it will affect the magnetic field when visualizing to connect with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There is a difference between chanting assistants and Dharma practice assistants. Chanting assistant only recites Namo Amitabha without visualization involved, and there is no problem even if it takes place in a place with poor magnetic fields. There is an advantage if you are there and provide chanting assistance. Their minds will be calmer, and their emotions will be less panicked. So, you can go to the scene and provide chanting assistance. But Dharma practice assistance involves visualization, and it must be done in a place with a good magnetic field. It is not suitable to visualize in hospitals and funeral homes. Otherwise, the failure rate will be high, especially if you are not practicing it well. We must pay attention to making offerings to virtuous teachers. We must distinguish clearly between virtuous teachers and evil teachers. According to Sadharmapundarika Sutra, the chapter of Profound Solemn Kings, a virtuous teacher is a great cause and condition. His teachings enable you to see the Buddha and aspire for Anuttara Sambodhi. That is, a virtuous teacher is a great cause and condition. He can help and guide you, enable you to see the Buddha and aspire to attain Buddhahood. Anuttara Sambodhi means perfect enlightenment, or attaining Buddhahood. As stated in Prajnaparamita Sutra, Volume 27, the core can speak emptiness. What is a virtuous teacher? He is the one who can explain emptiness. Methods of no forms, no actions, no creation and no destruction. This is the teachings of emptiness. And all kinds of wisdom, that is, he can teach many kinds of wisdom. A person that makes people happy to believe, those who make people feel very happy after listening to it. This is the kind of knowledge they want. They understand it finally after listening to the teachings. They are happy to accept and believe in it. These people are called the virtuous teachers. You have to make offerings to virtuous teachers to gain greater virtuous merits. On the other hand, you have to stay away from evil teachers in order to be protected and avoid being poisoned. The Dharma protectors protect you, but if you are often close to those evil teachers, resulting in his protective cover being broken, and so how can they protect you? You will be poisoned in the same way. So, if you want to be protected from poisoning, you must stay away from evil teachers. This is what the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment states, virtuous men. All of you. All sentient beings who wish to practice the holy Dharma in the Dharma-ending age. It is very difficult to practice the holy Dharma successfully in the Dharma-ending age. All the Dharma practitioners must remember. Should do your best. You should endeavor to try your best and do everything you can until the end of your life. You must do your best through your lifetime. You also need to do your best to make offerings to virtuous teachers and serve virtuous teachers. That is, you must make offerings and provide services to virtuous teachers. Any virtuous teacher wishes to get close to you. If a virtuous teacher requests you to take refuge, comes to teach you or gets close to you, should stop being arrogant. Remember not to think that you are superior, thinking that you finally beg me to take refuge and learn the holy Dharma from you, knowing my importance, and that I am able to help. The truth is that you want me to help promote the Dharma. So, you become very arrogant, play tricks and do things to see whether he would continue to teach you. These are very bad. Do not do these because it is a violation of precepts, which will damage your virtuous rewards. If repeat, stay away, he has taught you repeatedly for a long time, but in the end he felt that it is impossible to continue to teach you. He needs to put you into Brahmada and stay away from you. Should cut off hatred. You should not resent that virtuous teacher. If you hate him, you will plant great evil karma, which is very serious. Never do this. This is what the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment teaches you. What is an evil teacher? The Sadharmasmriti Upasthana Sutra states, an evil teacher is abiding in greed, hatred and ignorance. It means that an evil teacher is full of and obsessed with greed, hatred and ignorance. A wise man should abandon it like a poisonous tree. Wise people should abandon the evil teacher and treat him like a poisonous tree, as you would be poisoned if you touch it. You have to think in this way. Let's look at the factors that determine a successful rebirth. These are the three elements. These three elements are called main causes. When the masters practice the holy Dharma as a remedy for you, those are just the ancillary conditions. You must be clear about that. Whether you want to be reborn into the Buddha's pure lands, liberated from the cycle of karmic existence, practice the holy Dharma to attain Buddhahood, or simply wish not to fall into the three lower realms, but take rebirth as a human being, you must remember that the nature of mind is the main cause, which is the most important. If this nature of mind scores too low, lower than 50 points, it will result in failure even other elements score highly. One will still be reborn into a bad place, because the gap is when the information of the five aggregates is released infinitely, and that is a very big gap. If the nature of mind of the main cause cannot be controlled, all other factors will not help, and an immediate, bad rebirth will take place. The Yamantaka in hell is such a case. There was a Dharma practitioner who practiced the visualization method of the Yamantaka deity. His visualization was very clear with a powerful Dharma practice ability, but his nature of mind was poor. As a result, he could not save himself in time. It takes some time if you need to call others for rescue. Yet it is fastest if you know how to practice the holy Dharma yourself, as you can practice it right away. But it was too late. Why? Because it was not as fast as the gap of the nature of mind. Upon seeing those scenes, he abided in notions and fell into lower rebirths immediately. As a result, he fell into the hell realm, but he still looked like the Yamantaka deity, because his visualization was so clear. Hence, the name of the case. This great Dharma practitioner ended up falling into the hell realm, and looked like the Yamantaka deity. So, it is referred to as the Yamantaka in hell. As a guru, what should he do if he really wants to save his disciples? He must do enough of these three things to help the disciples. Firstly, he must demand his disciples to observe the precepts, to improve their nature of mind. Secondly, it is necessary to monitor the disciples, whether they have observed the precepts or not. Many esoteric or exoteric Buddhist gurus only teach, but not demand the disciples to observe the precepts. They do not take responsibility to pay attention to or monitor the disciples if they have observed the precepts or not. As a disciple, he must be poor in Dharma practice, and not very knowledgeable about the Buddhist holy Dharma. So, it is very difficult for him to observe the precepts, and there is no one to help and correct him. His nature of mind will become poor if he does not observe the precepts. Therefore, if the master wants to help his disciples, he must do two things to improve their nature of mind. Firstly, demand the disciples to observe the precepts, and secondly, monitor whether the disciples have observed the precepts or not. Thirdly, guide the disciples who observe the precepts, to help the deceased disciple by performing Dharma practice assistance. Chanting assistance and Dharma practice assistance are different. Dharma practice assistance is more rigorous. The Guru needs to teach those disciples who observe the precepts on how to practice the holy Dharma, because Dharma practice assistance involves the visualization practice, not only chanting Namo Amitabha and reciting mantras. During the Upavasata Dharma event, all the disciples are required to recite the precepts before chanting the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva for repenting sins, and the effect is the best. It is performed after finishing the recitation of the precepts at the Dharma ceremony, preferably after public repentance, but usually there is not enough time. When the mind is clearest and the evil karma is the least, the effect of Dharma practice assistance, reciting the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, or practicing the repentance method is the best. Only such kind of nature of mind meets the requirement. This is what the master needs to do. As for accumulating virtuous karma in large quantities, what should be done to help the deceased? The disciples must be required to do virtuous merits and make offerings for the dead. As stated in the Avatamsaka Sutra, which has been explained earlier, the Dharma offerings is one of the offerings which include listening, analyzing and meditating, and all three must be done. Therefore, the Guru must teach and explain the Buddhist holy Dharma. I know that many masters do not teach the Buddhist holy Dharma these days, but only teach the rituals and confer empowerments. That's it. Or teach you how to practice that ritual. They do not explain the Buddhist holy Dharma. If the Guru does not explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, no Dharma offerings can be accomplished. The Dharma offerings need to be heard and listened, and so the Guru needs to verbally explain the Buddhist holy Dharma. Otherwise, he will not be able to practice the holy Dharma to the required level. Analyzing means that he needs to think and analyze before practice. Otherwise, he will not be able to achieve the required level in his Dharma practice. Only then the Dharma practice will be able to meet the requirements. Therefore, the Guru must help the disciples to accomplish all three: listening, analyzing and meditating. If he does not explain the Buddhist holy Dharma, and only confers empowerments, teaches rituals, conducts Dharma events and recites mantras, the listening and analyzing aspects of the Dharma offerings cannot be achieved. Only a little of meditating can be achieved, which is not up to the required level due to insufficient understanding. He can only practice the holy Dharma blindly, and therefore he cannot achieve the required level. So, there is a big gap for this kind of Dharma offerings. Do not think that you can succeed if you practice the holy Dharma in the cave 24 hours a day. In fact, your score is not enough. So, I ask my disciples to make notes from the Buddhist holy Dharma teachings. I have uploaded a lot of videos on the YouTube, and I demand them to make notes and submit them to me every 3 months. Disciples who do not submit notes will not be taught the Buddhist holy Dharma. Disciples who miss the submission deadline will not be allowed to attend the Upavasata Dharma events. Disciples who continue not to hand in any notes will be considered a retreat from the association. If a disciple continues to break the rules, no Dharma practice will be performed for him when he dies in the future. Because he is so substandard, unwilling to adjust his virtuous and evil karmic portfolio, nature of mind is poor, refuses to listen to his Guru, it will be a waste of time and efforts to help him practice the holy Dharma. That's why they are required to make notes. Some people say, why does the Dudjom Buddhist Association International have so many rules? It is so troublesome. One must make notes and listen to the Buddhist holy Dharma. It is not permissible if one does not attend the Buddhist holy Dharma teachings. After one has submitted the notes, he might be questioned to test whether he did it by himself or paid somebody else to do it for him. He is also required to take an exam to decide whether he can attend the specific Buddhist holy Dharma teachings. Why is it so troublesome? It is very troublesome for us having to do so much work. If we are as lazy as other gurus, we would pay no attention to you after teaching. Whether you will reach the Buddha's pure lands or fall into the hell realm in the future has nothing to do with me. Of course, it is best if there is no need to do anything. However, a genuine guru cannot be so lazy. This is dereliction of duty. If you want to succeed in your Dharma practice, and not to fall into the 3 lower realms, you must find this kind of diligent guru to bring hope. Serving the guru, you need to help the guru to propagate the Buddhist holy Dharma. Otherwise, there will be no virtuous merit in this aspect. In terms of material offerings, do not think that the amount of your money is large. If it is only a fraction of your assets, the scores are still not high enough, so you have to see clearly. These 3 kinds of offerings require enough scores. Take an example of the smoke offering, Dharma ceremonies. If you are not my disciple, you only attend the smoke offering, Dharma events, or any Dharma event. You should pay attention to see whether there is Buddhist holy Dharma teachings in these events. If there are no holy Dharma teachings, certain parts will be missing. There will be no listening and analyzing, but only the meditating aspect, which is 1/3, will be left. Your Dharma practice will be less than 1/3 of the right level. These Dharma events are just not enough. If there is Buddhist holy Dharma teachings, it means that at least the listening and hearing aspect of the Dharma offering will be covered. If the Dharma ceremony you attend has the Buddhist holy Dharma teachings, it will cover the listening and analyzing aspects, which is at least 2/3 of the Dharma offering. It makes a huge difference. Therefore, this is the importance of whether there is Buddhist holy Dharma teachings in a Dharma ceremony. Regarding material offering, you have paid to make smoke offerings, and if those offerings are used to assist in propagating the holy Dharma, your virtuous merits will be even greater. While you have made offerings of services and material offerings, they are still relatively indirect. I demand my disciples not only to make material offerings and smoke offerings, but to help promote the Buddhist holy Dharma, which is the most direct. The requirements for disciples will be higher. They must really assist in propagating the holy Dharma, because the success rate will be higher. As for ordinary Dharma believers who have not taken the refuge, we are not very demanding. We do not request them to assist in propagating the holy Dharma. But we also encourage them to make smoke offering, so they can accumulate virtuous merit extensively. If they can do what I just said, they can massively increase their virtuous karma. How do they greatly reduce their evil karma? It is to demand the disciples to attend the Upavasata Dharma events, for reciting precepts and repentance. The disciples are given an opportunity to repent in public. It is not compulsory, and I do not force them. So, Su Aur did not repent as I did not force her. It is useless to force the disciples to repent, as repentance will become insincere, that is, it is useless. So, I never force my disciples to make public confession. All gurus, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dharma protectors are invited to attend the Upavasata Dharma event as witness. In addition, the current gurus and fellow Dharma brothers will be present to witness as well. Therefore, the strength of repentance will be much more powerful compared to any other kind of repentance. Hence, both the inner and outer strengths are very sufficient at the same time. So, you can greatly reduce the evil karma if you repent in such places where the magnetic fields are so good. As a guru, not only does he need to offer the Upavasata Dharma event to his disciples, but he should also demand his disciples to practice repentance-related methods and strictly observe the precepts. In this way, disciples can clear a large quantity of evil karma accumulated over countless lifetimes within a short period of time. It is a very good shortcut to alleviate evil karma. Therefore, if you go to a Dharma center and look for a guru, you need to observe if the Upavasata Dharma event is provided, and the Buddhist holy Dharma is taught during a Dharma ceremony. Then, you will roughly know whether this Dharma center is qualified or not. If this can be done, it will help the disciples and believers to reduce evil karma, and even reduce it drastically. Let's have a look. Are there any shortcuts in the Dharma visualization practice? Firstly, you must take refuge. Secondly, you must have faith in your guru. Thirdly, you must accept to take an exam to ensure a solid foundation, and gradually receive the required practice methods according to the progress. If no exam is gone through, if the disciple attends every Dharma event and helps propagating the holy Dharma, you then teach him the holy Dharma practice, but in fact he is not able to practice properly to the right level. You will not know if he has practiced the holy Dharma carelessly or made a mistake. He will not score highly in his Dharma practice. Therefore, the guru must do all these things to enable the disciple to score highly in this aspect. If this can be done, it is considered a shortcut. That is, some teaching methods are not shortcuts. They go round and round, and the practitioner can never achieve the required level even after practicing them for a long time. He will not attain the desired effect even after practicing for decades. So, you must observe whether the guru knows how to teach you the shortcut visualization methods. It depends on what kind of gurus you are looking for. If you can get high scores on the 3 most important factors for success in Dharma practice, as described above, you can be assured to be reborn into a very good Buddha's pure lands even without a guru's assistance in practicing holy Dharma at death. Even your Dharma practice method is the one that enables you to attain Buddhahood. With emptiness being incorporated in the Dharma practice, you can go to a higher level of the heavens of the form realm and be liberated from samsara, or you can even attain Buddhahood. If the score of the disciple's main cause is too low, it is impossible for the guru to practice the holy Dharma for him every day. If his score is too low after death and it fails after the guru has practiced the holy Dharma once, the guru has to practice the holy Dharma twice, or 3 times to be successful. It had been practiced twice for Su or 2. It is impossible to practice the holy Dharma for you every day until successful. You may not be able to wait, as you may be pulled by your karma instantly to take rebirth. Once you have been reborn, how can you be saved? Should we kill you and then help you to move to the realm of heavens? This is not possible. Those Dharma practices can at best only help you accumulate more virtuous merits, so that you will not be too badly off when you get to that particular realm. For example, if you go to the realm of animals, you will not be a poor animal. You will become a pet animal without being hungry and cold, or foraging for food in the wild. That is, these Dharma practices will help you accumulate virtuous merits. So, you must listen to the advice of your guru and work hard to practice well on the main cause. If you can achieve a score of 80 to 100 points on the above 3 important factors, you will definitely succeed. If you score 50 points, then you only have half the chance to succeed. Score of 10 points means that you can only improve to a certain extent. For example, you were originally reborn into the 18th level of the Hell realm, but now you can be upgraded to the 1st level. The degree of suffering has been reduced a lot. Therefore, you must practice the holy Dharma diligently for the sake of your own future. Do not underestimate these elements thinking that you are doing very well by doing only a little of each every day. You are deceiving yourself as well as others. The lecture today is finished. The next Dharma event will be held on the 31st of March 2019. It will be a lamp offering Dharma ceremony that practices the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo state for salvation and removing obstacles during the tomb sweeping festival. I have already said this. Many relatives and friends of sentient beings have been dead for many years, but there is a chance that they are still in the Bardo state and have not yet reincarnated. Some of them have entered into the realm of hungry ghosts, and sometimes they call you for help in the dream. We need to dedicate some virtuous merits to them and do our best to help them. Didn't you just say that the deceased needs to have a sound nature of mind? He needs to have more virtuous karma and less evil karma. It is best if he knows how to practice the holy Dharma by himself to help him. This is correct. But if you help him to make virtuous merits, he can accumulate virtuous merits. He needs to accumulate virtuous merits slowly, and when he has accumulated enough, he can be reborn into a good place. If he has been reborn, you also need to continue to do virtuous merits for him, so he has virtuous merits to use in that realm instead of being poor. For example, no studying, being hungry and cold, etc., being beaten severely in the realm of hells. In this situation, at least he has some virtuous merits to use. Whether he has taken rebirth or not, you need to do something for him. Therefore, we will not only disseminate the mantra of the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities at the tomb sweeping festival Dharma ceremony, so you can help chanting and accumulating virtuous merits, but also impart the praise. Praise and mantra are different. Both are considered virtuous merits. Although the mantra is more central to the core, the praise is also essential. The lamp offering ritual is to teach you how to directly increase the energy element to help your relatives and friends connect with the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. We will visualize and help you connect. We will also perform 2 esoteric practices of the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities of the Bardo state in the great net of magical illusions. The essence of the most profound meaning and distinct practice of arousing peace and wrath to bless the dead and those who live in the world. It is not only the dead relatives and friends who need to practice this method to help them. The living people in the world also need to greatly increase their virtuous merits. These 2 Dharma practices can both increase their virtuous merits and protect them by creating a protective cover. We will offer blessings to believers who attend the Dharma event with sin-cleansing nectars, as well as recite names and dedicate virtuous merits. The Dharma event has live broadcast, which will only run to the praise section. The lamp offering ritual can only be taught to those who attend the event in person, but not those who watch through live broadcast. There will be no lecture for the Compassion series due to too many Dharma practices to be performed on the day of the Tomb Sweeping Festival Dharma ceremony. A smoke offering Dharma ceremony for celebrating the Buddha's birthday, as well as the 22nd anniversary of the parinirvana of Vajra Guru Lao Yuiche, will be held on the 12th of May 2019. The 18th lecture of the visualization practice of compassion and bodhicitta will be given on the day with live broadcast. You can attend, and it is best to come in person. Luminosity and no thought of the high-level realizing and sensing will be taught then. I have just explained bliss only, but not luminosity and no thought, which will be taught in the next session. The Lord Buddha manifested great supernatural powers, but why did he still suffer from birth, old age, illness and death? What is the rationale behind it? There is still a part of the letter that I have not finished explaining, and I will explain the rest next time. Another believer asked, visualization on Mount Sumeru for offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but without consensus with all sentient beings. Does this kind of visualization violate the precept of stealing? What is the justification for right or wrong? This will all be explained one by one at that time.